So I think that we can go ahead and get started. If Stephanie, you're ready to do roll call.
Yeah, Commissioner Dillard,
Here.
Commissioner Merritt,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Nobis,
Here.
Commissioner Krebs,
Here.
Commissioner Galtawa,
Here.
and we have a new member, and I apologize, I've not heard you pronounce your name, your last name.
Tassinary.
Tassinary?
Yes.
Commissioner Tassinary?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Next, we'll read the land acknowledgement.
Sorry, I'm using yours. We meet today in the community of Iowa City, which now occupies the homelands of Native American nations to whom we owe our commitment and dedication. The area of Iowa City was within the homelands of the Iowa, Meskwaki, and Sauk, and because history is complex and time goes far back beyond memory, we also acknowledge the ancient connections of many other indigenous peoples here. The history of broken treaties and forced removal that dispossess indigenous peoples of their homelands was and is an act of colonization and genocide that we cannot erase. We implore the Iowa City community to commit to understanding and addressing these injustices as we work toward equity, restoration, and reparations.
Thank you, Commissioner Merritt. Next, we're going to go to public comment. Is there anyone in the room or online? Are you on Zoom right now still?
Yeah, I just gotta get this.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Is there anyone, I'm just going to do online first. Charlie, if you don't mind. Is there anyone online? Okay, go ahead. Yeah. Thank you.
Good evening, and I hope you're enjoying your supper. My name is Charlie Eastham. I want to talk with you briefly about including the school district in your work as you go forward. I've had some conversations with you, some individually in the past, so I apologize if I'm repeating myself. Again, I'm a member of the Iowa City Community School District School Board, but I'm talking as myself. The board itself has not had a discussion about the TRC's participation with us as we work to continue to correct disparities in academic and disciplinary outcomes in the district for students of color and other groups of students. I was taken by, or noticed that you're in your agenda for this evening under the title Session 6, Organizing of Hearings, that Mr. Gonzalez has written that I know that the TRC must itself determine the topic and select statement givers as you develop hearings and to go forward. So I'm asking, I guess, if you will, as an individual, if you would consider including district issues as you do go forward and collect your information. The district, as you know, records our board sessions, and there are several, I think, that have video of students talking to the board about their experience in the district and their experiences of racism in the district. Those, of course, are public records and are available to you. I'm not going to, to talk at length about the issues of student privacy that you would encounter as you, if you decide to go in this direction. But I'm sure they can be addressed well. So that's my request, and I hope we will be able to work with you as we go forward here. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else? Welcome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Laura Burgess, and I'm a member of the Iowa City City Council. I think I've had the chance to meet or speak with pretty much all of you, but I just wanted to say thank you. Here on this third day of your training. It's been fantastic to watch the parts that I've been able to attend, and I look forward to watching those that I haven't seen yet, but just so grateful for your work and for all of the time and patience and persistence and heart and everything that you have put into this work. So we're just really excited that we're here and getting this going, and I just want to extend my deep, deep gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to comment? Okay, if not, I'm going to turn it over to our facilitators to move forward.
Good evening, everyone. Hope you had an opportunity to get some food. The sequence to begin is going to be a centering activity. We're going to review the agreements one more time, and then we're going to reintroduce ourselves to you all. Who are we? What brings us here? We asked you yesterday to ponder that, and we're going to have an opportunity to give you just a little bit more, again, about us. And then we turn it over to Larry, who will continue the evening. So, any questions about that to get started? All right, so I would just like to ask you all to find a comfortable position. Gently close your eyes. And just find an arrangement with your body that feels comfortable to you. Let both sides of your pelvis, your hips, be balanced as much as possible. And arrange your legs so that they are as symmetrical as possible. And bring your attention to a calm and alert body so that there's some balance between vitality and tranquility throughout the body. And also feel how the breath is feeling within the body. With your breathing flowing naturally in the background, bring your attention here to your ears and allow the ears to open to the sounds, subtle sounds like the ones you may hear in the body, maybe some sounds in the environment around you, or maybe you're even able to detect some sounds in the distance, and also to the predominant sound of my voice. Let the ears be receptive to sound. Imagine your ears are like microphones, and that they're not chasing sounds or following the sounds. The sounds just come to the ears. They arrive to the ears, and the ears make contact with the sound. Hearing happens without adding anything to it. So imagine the ears are like microphones and they're receptive to the whole field of sound. While we may all hear the sound of words, the words that come to our ears, we may understand the words differently from one another. When we hear the sounds of words, we may create pictures in our minds about those sounds. We may associate feelings and ideas with the sounds of words we hear. Our personal lived experiences, our personal stories, the narratives we carry, the meaning we assign to the words we hear may be different for each and every one of us. See if it's possible to feel the breath in the background and the sounds that come to the ear. Sometimes when there is calmness, we can explore listening to sound below the language. just notice the sounds without language. Try that on. Opening up receptively to the field of sound with an alert body without so much language. And then come back to the breath in the body. Observe how the breath may have settled during this short time that we've been together. And observe, if you may, the vitality and the tranquility that the breath is able to bring. And finally, notice if there's any heightened awareness in the ears of the sounds that you may hear. And when you're ready, and in your own time, there's no rush. Begin to bring your awareness back to your presence in the room. And gently allow the eyes to open, keeping the gaze low while the eyes become adjusted to the light in the room. And we'll continue. Thank you. Do we have the agreements that we're able to pull up on the screen, or those commissioners? Can you find those, your copy?
Let's do the presentation. This
Plus some that we added.
Yep.
And some more.
Okay.
So you guys-
So these are the agreements that day one, yeah. With some edits to these original agreements, these are the conditions that provide the framework for working together in this training. They create the safety, build the trust that we need as we work together. So we've agreed to respect others, honoring each other's experiences, knowing that differences exist in our experiences and our opinions and our perspectives. We can agree to disagree, but we will honor each other's experiences. We will employ courtesies, basic courtesies, arriving on time, turning off our cell phones. We're all eating, working meal at this time, but not in a way that is disruptive. When we speak from our own experience, from ourselves, and we're not necessarily speaking for the entire group. We may be representing And we have the expectations that others will also be speaking from their own experience. Taking responsibility and accepting the consequences that our words and actions might have. Being aware of our body language. I think it might have been noted the other day that crossing arms in front of the body and teeth chattering is a function not of being with the group, but the temperature in the room. Making an effort to stay present, which is oftentimes why we begin with embodied practice, and we might need to return to it. The agreements do not say this, but I know from my years of being in a classroom with technology, cell phones can be disruptive. Certainly not if there's something that we need to check or some emergency, but oftentimes texting cell phones can be disruptive to the cohesion of the group. So just being aware of that. And respecting the foundational belief that equality pertains to all people with no exceptions. To participate effectively, it's important to acknowledge that social inequalities exist, of which we may be aware and may be completely unaware. Keeping an open mind, knowing that we don't know what we don't know, that this is a process of learning, it's a growth experience. Some of what we believe may be challenged. And that discomfort is often an indicator that learning is taking place, could be taking place. And finally, we have agreed to participate in the creation of a relatively safe atmosphere for open discussion. That we all are trying to do our best to make that happen. And I don't think on this paper is the last one, and my eyes are not good enough to read that last one, but I think it has to do with if something comes up that we need more time to discuss, we will put it in the proverbial parking lot and come back to it. I think we interrogated the parking lot and maybe had another idea for that. The what?
The prairie.
The prairie, that's right. And that we will, if not find time in this training before we close out tonight, there will be a time when we come back and address an open issue. We promise to make that happen because that contributes to the safety and the honesty of our circle. Any questions about that, our agreements? And once again, can we all agree again, just by show of hands, nods of heads, that we're all going to do our best to, sure. Oh, that was your guess. All right. Okay, so we're going to have a redux on who we are and what brings us here. Start with you, Larry.
It's good to be with you all. I'm Larry Schooler, please call me Larry, and I'm a member of a firm called Kearns & West, which focuses on facilitation and consensus building for public agencies, so anyone from city government to state and federal government. I'm here because, for me, I'm guided by a couple of principles that, in my case, come from my faith tradition. One I'm actually wearing on my wrist, which in Hebrew says Shema, and Shema means listen. And to me, Truth and Reconciliation Commissions are one of, if not the most extraordinary exercises in listening that we have as humanity, and I want to be associated with that. And the other one is an expression called tikkun olam. And tikkun olam is often translated as repair the world. And I don't know exactly how I'm meant to do that, but this feels like one way for me to try. So thank you all very much.
Dave?
Sure. Hey, y'all. It's good to be here again today. And again, I can share I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. Was born and raised there. And I would say like some of my core beliefs and values are related to some African principles, particularly the term Sankofa, which means to go back and get it. And it means you have to go back and get the past in order to go forward. Also Ubuntu, which means that we're connected. And you know, my faith tradition is Yoruba, and I am part of Ile, which is a house that is rooted in nature and traditional, well, it's a traditional African spirituality. But I've been a Muslim, I'm also Muslim my entire adult life. And so those are some of the values that guide me, particularly decoloniality as well. Deeply interested in that. And I live on a farm with my daughter who's 5 years old. So that's a little bit about me, and I'd love to continue to talk if folks have more questions and thoughts. Oh, yeah. And I didn't tell you. So I'm with Think Peace. And we work closely with Think Peace on truth and reconciliation processes, supporting the area of truth-telling. Particularly, my own expertise is around restorative justice, transformative justice, and reparative justice. And I've supported communities like New York, who just passed a reparations bill, and also worked with Portland on their Truth Commission, and worked with a number of other communities in their early stages of forming truth processes. And I look at the way social movements and truth processes are connected.
Next, thank you, Dave. Ibu Ishwa, buenas noches, good evening. I am first generation US American. My mother is Colombian. Early settlers going back on one side to conquistadors from Spain, and on other side, Muisca tribe, a Chibcha language tribe in the Bogota area. My father is Ukrainian from Odessa, a place on the planet you may have begun to hear about. I was raised in a multicultural Spanish, multi-religious, Catholic, and Jewish household. I'm a member of the Baha'i faith, as I have been for all of my adult life. I have spent all of that adult life in classrooms with little kids all the way up to doctoral students. I've taught most recently in the Women's Studies program for about 20 some odd years, and teaching teachers in Northwest New Mexico who are returning Peace Corps fellows, getting degrees in rural education on Zuni and Navajo land. I was I was retired at one point till Dave knocked on my door, or I knocked on his, or whatever, and I've been working as the co-director of the Truth Telling Project with Dave for a number of years and in a number of iterations. And our work, and I neglected to also mention that my home was a safe place for an Afro-Cuban family fleeing Castro. So I grew up in a Black, Jewish, Spanish household in a predominantly white New England community, and not New England, New Jersey, that's not New England. And my background is in peace education, peace studies, conflict resolution, and gender and women's studies. And I'm sure there's some more, but I'm not gonna. I also have a studio and I make jewelry, and that's really where I have joy. On to you.
Good evening, everyone. I am Stephanie Rose Spalding. I am a partner with Think Peace. I am the founder of Truth and Conciliation Commission, and very intentional about the word conciliation, as reconciliation means to return to a place. But when it comes to the work of racial justice, there is no returning to, because there was no agreement in the start. But I grew up on the south side of Chicago in a very working class family where my parents were laborers that did everything that they could to for their family to be protected and to grow in traditional and non-traditional ways. And much of that work comes from our faith tradition. To echo a lot of what Dave has said, the Ubuntu means I am because we are. And that connectedness of practice to know that there is no way for us to exist outside of one another. I was blessed to have opportunities in formal education that led me to study at Clark Atlanta University, where I did my undergraduate work, which is the HBCU for those that may not be familiar, historically Black institution, and to know what that means in the history of this nation and Black intelligentsia. And then to go on to studying at Purdue University for a master's and a PhD in American Studies, focusing specifically on critical white masculinities in popular culture. So imagine being a Black woman doing critical white masculinities, and teaching at the University of Colorado in Colorado Springs, in a very military evangelical community. But yes, so resistance and struggle and all that comes with it is the work that I've committed my life to, and have been on real watch lists and have had white supremacists coming for my life on my job, in my home, in my faith community, to the point of being stared down by snipers and continuing to do the work. But knowing that there is a better world for us, and deeply holding that to be true, in spite of what we are experiencing right now.
Hi everyone, my name is Lois Grace Kenyoka. Since everybody went in depth on their origins, sorry. I am a first generation Congolese American. I am from the Kenyok tribe of Kikavu. My grandpa was a culture chief, so very cool. In some way, I am an African princess, but you know. Yeah, so I'm with Think Peace. I'm their liaison associate. I do the groundwork here. Outside of that, I work with on the board with the Iowa Foster Youth Council, where we work on legislatives surrounding laws passed about the foster care system. And I've been working on a project called Home in a Box with them since I was 15 years old, where we basically provide basic essentials for when kids first leave their homes. And yeah, that's what I do. And I also just graduated from the University of Iowa, so feeling old.
Yay.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody. I am Eduardo Gonzalez. I am Peruvian by origin. I spent in Peru the first half of my life. I was originally, when I was younger, interested in literature, and that is what I thought I was going to do. Right. And the reality, though, is that I was living in a country that was deeply divided and that was experiencing basically a war. And so I activated. I was basically a militant in social justice causes and activities. Those were very difficult years. As a student in one of the universities in Lima, I saw close by death and disappearance of several of my friends and colleagues in the university. And at the end of all that period, also what I saw was the defeat of popular movements in Peru because of the war, because of the actions of the Shining Path, because of the actions of the security forces. So at some point, I decided that I needed to reflect on what had happened. And I was very lucky to be admitted to a university in the US. I went to New York. I spent a few years studying, and I got very interested in human rights law. And I started to look at what had happened from the standpoint of human rights. And then I brought that knowledge back to Peru, where I helped organize a Truth Commission. And after that, I took that knowledge in turn to take it to other countries. In 2020, during the pandemic, I had a little kid, and we were very scared of everything that was going on. And I was obsessively looking for anything resembling good news. And it was very dark because we had the pandemic, we had the assassination of George Floyd, the repression against kids who were demonstrating in the streets, and I guess I never realized how traumatizing my upbringing in Peru during a conflict had been. I think I only came to realize that in those months of the worst moments in New York. And as part of my exploration of good news, I discovered that Iowa City had decided to create a Truth Commission. And so I started to look for information. I found the names of the council members who were actively working on that. I located them via Twitter, I remember, when Twitter was Twitter. And they were generous enough to share their time and, show the work that they had presented to the city council, and I became very, very interested. And so from that time, I think I volunteered for a number of activities. I have made presentations at the city council, interacted with the commissioners, with the different chairs of the commissioners, and gone through all the avatars of the existence of the commission and the risks to its existence. So yeah, I'm very happy that we're finally doing it. And we're finally here, and all that I have in terms of experience, commitment, knowledge, doubts, hesitations are here for you.
Awesome. And yes, and we also have a new commissioner too that we would love to hear from. Larry, we're getting notes that because the camera is right behind you, if you could shift to the other side.
Hello, my name is Danielle Wanati, Biwani Nedishis. I'm Meskwaki, enrolled in federally recognized tribe, Sac and Fox of the Mississippi and Iowa, which is a settlement. We bought our first land in 1857, 11 years after Iowa became a state, and now we own 8,000 acres in the state of Iowa. We are self-sufficient, and I got involved because of Christine, or Sakawas. And so Iowa is very important to me because we have to build relationships in this state because my people are not going to leave this state, so we have to work within these communities. And I'm getting involved to try and educate the state of Iowa about us because there's even teachers in the state of Iowa who are telling their students in 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade that there's no more Indians in the state of Iowa when there's 4,000 that live near Tama, Iowa, and there's 14,000 in the state of Iowa. So I think the state needs to be educated on Native Americans, and a rising tide raises all ship, and we all have to live together. I'm a water protector. I ran to DC in 2016. I'm an advocate for Native Americans and anybody that has Native American blood in them and people in general. And so that's why I'm here. I'm more of on a spiritual level, but I do have to start using my voice and speaking up for people who don't have a voice. So, yeah, that's it. That means all my relations in my language.
Good evening. Vifix Marais. My pronouns are they, them. And I've been in the community for about 11 years. My background is really in community and environmental planning. But really, when it gets down to it, it's about relationships. We really are all we have. And I actually believe in us. I believe that we can be better. I was really moved by the fact that that the TRC was created, and I watched as it was being created from a distance because I had small children. It was a pandemic, and I had some health issues going on, so I couldn't join. So I'm really honored to be here in this capacity to help facilitate the journey and the work. I am a public servant to my core, and I'm just really, I am really humbled by all of us here today and the work that we're undertaking every day and getting to know these wonderful humans, all of you, from all walks of life, from all places. It's really life-changing, and I think that we are making history, and so I'm glad to be here.
Great. So Annie Tucker, I've been here since '76. I went to college in Ohio so I could be near my grandmother. I grew up in LA. And when Kent State happened, we were demonstrating and they shut down our school. I went to stay with my grandmother. And when I came back, my heart sank. Like I had heard those words before, my heart sank. But I walked back into the dorm area and my heart sank. So I knew that I wasn't going to be staying there. So anyway, I ended up going back that summer to LA, stayed for a year, became trained as a nurse's aide, got interested in something else. Anyway, moving around and finding out things that took me further from the mainstream, ways to heal people that were not commonly known, right? So ended up coming here because I'd met my husband in Boston, and he was from here, and I came back here, and we've been here a lot of that time. And in the course of that, I've been like a city bus driver here, union member, daycare worker, cleaning out motel rooms, different kinds of jobs. I wanted to be trained in mediation because as a mother of 4, and married to somebody who sees the world, in a way sees the world similarly, but our temperaments are different, right? So I just needed more skills. So I got somebody from the Peace Institute to teach us mediation. That seemed like a good idea. So I've been a mediator since then. A group of us started a nonprofit. What I think mediation is in my learning and my experiences, it's a chance for people to say what they want people to hear and to set the scene so that people can listen to each other and then see what they can do. And even when people are ordered, once they're there, it's voluntary. And I see my role as helping them have that opportunity, not as a fixer or a figure-outer, or I'm going to tell you, or an advisor. So our nonprofit oversees court-connected mediation programs, and then was asked to start learning how to provide restorative justice in referred juvenile cases. So we've been doing that for maybe about 10 years, and we trained a diverse group of folks to be teams doing that, because the goal was to have people doing that represented who's in the community, okay? We haven't been as successful at having that thrive, but still working on that, and working with adult cases too. A powerful turning for me was going to one of the first white privilege conferences here and understanding like the systemic inequity. I'm embarrassed to say that I grew up thinking that some people were lucky, some people weren't lucky, and then there were mean people. Like that was really, even as an early adult, as much as I knew about the world. And so beginning to understand systemic inequity and have friends who are telling me how life is for them right here, that is so different than my life in different ways, has been really powerful work, powerful learning. So I wanted to be in the room with you guys when you were having your conversations, because it seemed like the work you were doing was the most important work happening here. And I also had learned how to do circles, just talking circles, not religious circles. And always was wondering if that would be something that was helpful, because people feel more connected and calmer when they're in circle and every voice matters equally. So I was also wondering if that would be helpful for you guys. And I never foresaw doing anything in a formal way with you guys. I just wanted to be supportive. So I'm grateful for all of us who have like kept holding this vision and kept being here, even folks who have stepped back. Many of them step back to take care of themselves, and that's fair. This is big work, but here we are, and I'm grateful for everybody who's converged to help this move ahead.
I feel like we should have Terry go first.
Okay. We say in our language, "Takepi," that means listen up, pay attention, lend me your ear. And I was an urban Indian at one time in Sioux City, Iowa. Had no choice. My father was from Mexico, my mother full-blood Sioux Indian. So my social security name is Terrence Medina. My Indian name is Akichita Hochita, means warrior, soldier. Then my nicknames, T-Bone, T-Money, T-Funky Cold Medina, wherever I go. People give you a name and it just sticks. And so I've been married for 39 years, and so my wife and I, we have 7 children. Our son's 38, our daughters are 35, 33, and 32. We took a break, then our son's 26, our daughter's 25, then our youngest son's 19. Then my 2 oldest sons, hard to believe, one's 42, then my oldest son's 51. So I'm creeping up on 69 winters now. And so I have grandchildren and great-grandchildren, members of double OG. So I'm just an old great-grandpa. My background is in law enforcement. I was a probation officer for almost 37 years. I was telling Christine today, I used to serve on the Nebraska Coalition for Juvenile Justice. In the politics of that, you had to be appointed by the governor of your state to serve. So I served under 3 different governors. So at the national level, they had African American Coalition, Hispanic Coalition, but they kind of eliminated the Native American Coalition. In South Dakota, Oklahoma, Arizona, Minnesota, high states with high populations of Native Americans, there was no respect from the governors. They wasn't appointing nobody. So I fought the battle for a while. And then Fatherhood is Sacred came into my life. 20 years now I've been teaching that class. So I kind of moved over to Fatherhood is Sacred. So I've been teaching this class. So I've been all over the world. Hooked up with an international group of Indigenous fathers to talk about the family. So my day title is a probation officer. I'm known as a basketball coach, a ball player, father man. So for me, in my walk of life in Sioux City, Iowa, I live on the Winnebago Indian Reservation where my wife's from. So all my children, they're enrolled in the Winnebago tribe because at that time, healthcare was an issue. So us, there's Lakotas, we're Dakota. So my wife, she's a Thunder clan. They have clans, so all my children have a Winnebago Ho-Chunk name, and they have a lot of benefits. Winnebago's got it going on. My wife, she just retired from chairman of the board for Ho-Chunk Incorporated, which is a multi-billion-dollar corporation, international contract as town Christine. My wife, she left the state, she left the country twice in vow of secrecy. Never did tell me where she went. So I'll give her credit for that. She just, nope, cut. And so my life now is as a Native American advocate for SHIP, Siouxland Human Investment Partnerships. So I'm right in the heart of the city, downtown Sioux City. I'm in the Skywalk. So as an advocate, I'm with the Native people in juvenile court, adult court, juvenile detention. I go into the jails. I do a lot of ICWA, Indian Child Welfare work now. And, a lot of times my experience with people, I don't care who you are. I was an administrator for a while, and so when I had to reprimand somebody, I take the position as a coach. I think I shared this that's my new title with the casinos. I'm their spirituality empowerment coach. So when they have issues with an employee, instead of having a mental health person come in, no disrespect to the behavioral health people, they want them to come in and do my sage and talk to them. So as a coach, I'm going to try to inspire them, empower them, motivate them to do better. I say I sound like a broken record. We can't change the past. People beat themselves up over the past. We can't change it, but it's a teachable moment every day for us. And that's the big thing in our fatherhood, motherhood way of life. It's all about choices, that teachable moment. And so for me, service is important. My wife, real traditional, our children, our daughters and my sons, when a father and a mother reach a certain age, all our work's done. So my wife, she's, I'll be 69, she'll be 60. But yeah, she comes home, she takes her shower, gets in the chair. My daughters cook and clean, my sons. We don't do nothing at home. Everything is taken care of, raised traditional way. They're Thunder Clan. And I think I made that comment today about walking in the rain. A couple weeks ago, Sioux City, Iowa, I was sitting there outside the law enforcement building. All the professional people, I don't want to pick on no non-Indian, but there's the ladies, had their hair bonnets on, had their umbrellas on, all the suits, they don't want to get one drop of rain on them, remember? Not one drop. Me, I'm out there getting that blessing because it's a heavenly blessing from Creator God. Comes down and blesses Mother Earth. Then even the Thunder Clan, in my line of work, people come and they shed a lot of tears. I have a spirit room in my office. I got a teaching room. And so they come and shed a lot of tears. And so when they have a good cry, I let them know that, they're cleansing their spirit and their heart. To me, you hear me say it, people walk around every day with that broken heart. Sometimes the heart shattered to pieces, same with their spirit, broken and shattered. And so they give up on hope. So my role is more of a servant to the people. I'm on Christine's board, Great Plains Area Action Society. On so many boards and committees, I get confused sometimes. And once you make a commitment to be on a board, it just means nothing but responsibility. And so I try to be involved in Sioux City area. No, I'm pretty much not the only Native. Not Christine, but Tricia, she's on the money. And so in our Siouxland area, like our law enforcement, the Woodbury County Board of Supervisors, we're all at the table. We have a Native American liaison commission with the law enforcement. So when we had 3 missing Native women that went missing, called Sheriff Chad Sheehan, Rex Miller, Jeremy McClure. We found him, all 3 of them. My son Matt Hoffman, he's a KTIV channel reporter. He gets the word out. So in our area, our natives we come together as one. A lot of times it's like some people, I say it all the time, people, institutions, they put up invisible barrier in wall. I'm sorry, I can't do it. And so when you serve the people, you got to be there to serve them. And so I left my other phone in my room, but people, they seek me out. And so for me, I'm there to serve them. What's important, I'm there to listen to them. I swear to God, with the social workers and probation officers, attorneys, they don't listen to the people. And I say it in a good way, like Tom Boske, he's one of the second in charge of the state of Iowa DHS, and Shane Frisk, he's a regional DHS man. Sadly, to say we have a Native American unit because of our Native children, Native families that have been taken out of the home. And so I said it here before, when you work with the Native people, you got to go Native. You can't think white, you got to go Native. So I've had probation officers, I've had social workers come into the sweat, come into our circle. And this morning I put down tobacco. This is the last day. So for us as Natives, we greet I didn't get up on sunrise, but I put tobacco. It's always on the west side of a tree. What's going to take place here today? They're about my sage tonight when I close it down later. And so when we talk about prayer, I had no choice. I had to go to Catholic school, Catholic grade school, Catholic high school. And so how many times, is there any Catholics in there? Anyway, so I don't want to start getting off about the Catholics, but now it's more our traditional ways, sweat lodge ways, Sundance ways, doing traditional things. So we use different medicines to pray and talk to Creator God. So I'll explain more about that later, but I'm honored to be here, and I've been running talking circles, prayer circles, listening circles for, if I think about it, 45, 50 years. And so I bring the Native touch to it, but to me, it's all about empowering a person's spirit every day. You got to pay attention. And if you don't pay attention, you could miss something, because what's right in front of us, we can't see it unless we listen. So I'm honored to be here. Thanks to Christine and Manape and Annie. We was on the phone there for a while. Forgot to meet her. And so for me, just me being here, just like everybody else, I had to ask my wife, honey, can I get your blessing and be gone for a week? I had to get everything in order. Had to call my office. So I get the blessing to telework and work from home. So for me to be over here, it's kind of refreshed and renewed, but at the same time, and during the day, Zoom calls going on, everything else. So I'm honored to be here. I'm looking forward to what we're going to create together. Aho.
Okay. So my name's Lou Tassinari. I'm the newest member, I guess, on the commission. I'm not quite sure what aspects of my background are important or to share and what you all would like to know, but I'll try to give you just a brief sort of synopsis.
I think the biggest thing is, how did you come to the commission?
Oh, okay, that's good. So I've been in academia for a long time. I was at Texas A&M University for 30-some years, and I went through the ranks of being professor and was executive associate dean in the College of Architecture for a while and served on a number of different committees. And over the course of that 30 years, I've served on a lot of diversity and equity committees, status of women in the university. It was clear to me then, it was clear to me when I was in college, it was clear to me when I was in high school that those issues are important. In fact, when I was in high school, I went to a private Catholic high school, and I convinced them, the Jesuits, to let me go to a public school for one semester, because what I wanted to do was write about the importance of education occurring with both men and women, because where I went was an all-male school. So I convinced the Jesuits to let me go there and to write a research paper on that. But anyway, recently retired. My wife's family has a long history here in the community. We came up here last year, and I've been searching for ways to figure out how I can contribute in the community. So I've been looking at different opportunities that are showing up. So I'm just recently got appointed to be on a commission having to do with sustainable communities for the elderly at the Johnson County level. And then I noticed that there was an opening here on the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And so I put in my application, and I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to contribute something as well as learn a great deal.
Awesome. So we just wanted to reiterate how we came to be. We asked you all yesterday, and I'm sure that you all want to know about us, and if you all have any questions and want to know further.
We have some questions.
Wow, just really cool to hear where everybody's from and the things they've done. I kind of wish we had heard this in the first night because it's, I don't know how to explain it, but it humanizes everybody to hear what they've done, those kinds of things. And so my reflections right now, my thoughts are about our new commissioner, and I was told that you'd be okay with me discussing, I guess my issues with this recent vote that the city made. So I just want to start off by saying that I don't have an issue with white people at all. I have an issue with white supremacy. And I think that those here that know me well know that I really do work from that place of love and caring for all human beings, and that every human being has value. And what we need to really be abolishing, what we need to be stomping out is white supremacy. Because white supremacy just doesn't live in white people, right? Like, it lives in many different people. Like, sometimes we like to say, like, all skin folk ain't kinfolk, right? Like, in our communities. However, in wiping out white supremacy, we need to empower those whom white supremacy harms. Who are those people? Those are BIPOC people, folks of the world majority, brown and black folks, people of color, however you want to name it. It's so hard to give a name to that sometimes. It's the folks that have been harmed by the process of colonization, the doctrine of discovery, genocide, erasure, the divide and conquer tactic, the urge to civilize, and to annihilate, right? So who are those people? They are brown and black folks here in the US, in particular, who I'm talking about, right? And so, again, I want to say that it's not that I have a problem with you as a human being on this committee, but I have a problem with you as representing, whiteness, which has been harming folks and which essentially is taking away from the voices of a brown or black person that could be sitting in your seat. I think that you have to ask, I would like to ask why, you can answer that after, but I will just say this so you can reflect on it for a little bit. Like, why is it you want to be here? Because in my opinion, a true ally, a true accomplice actually, would never want to be here at this table, because they would understand that this is something that should be led by the black and brown community. So if you really wanted to support this, then you would support it, but not necessarily have to lead it. My reservations about this come from years of work within brown and black communities, and me myself being, an Indigenous person, knowing that with this addition, it's going to make it difficult for some people to testify. It's going to make it difficult for those of us to feel comfortable sometimes as well, talking about the things that we need to talk about in spaces where we feel like we actually have some power. And being an academic does not give you the lived experience of a brown and black person. So that is my other thought. What is the lived experience of racism that you have experienced, right? It's not there, it doesn't exist. Being curious and wanting to learn is somewhat tokenizing for those of us that are here, if that is the intent. This is not a place to be curious or to learn. This is a place where we are actually the vessels that a lot of pain is going to be filtered through. So we're going to be looking into the eyes of our people who we love and filtering that pain into something that can then be recorded in kind of a sterile way, unfortunately, so that we can then beg the city to do something with it, right? So this is a really hard process for those of us that have the lived experience of living with racism, growing up with racism, and also misogyny, and homophobia, transphobia, all this stuff, right? How do we deal with that now? This reminds me sometimes of like, I was reminded of when you were talking about, going into the girls' school and now you're coming here, like I'm thinking this feels like kind of like anthropological in a way. And as an Indigenous person, I have a real issue with, academics and anthropology and coming to our spaces to, see and help when the helping has never been about, outsiders helping. It's been about us helping ourselves and like overcoming white saviorism. And that's, I hope, and like I said, this comes from like a really ethical place that I hope I'm coming from, like as ethical as I can be. And I think I'm saying what a lot of folks here are also feeling and what they felt when they found out this was happening, because we have felt really no support from the city at times. And it sometimes feels like they want to do things that are going to throw obstacles in our path that they know are going to make it hard for us to do this work. And not that you aren't, I'm sure, here for very good reasons, and I think they are legitimate and valuable. At the same time, again, I just needed to say these things because this is who we are. We are a BIPOC-led commission, and I think it should stay that way. And I don't think that there's anything wrong in saying that. So thank you for listening, and I welcome your honest reflections and would love a real conversation.
Wow. I guess I don't know exactly where to start. I guess all I would say is that in being as completely honest as I can, that you've presumed a lot in those statements about who I am, what my actual experiences have been, that I think it would make more sense for that knowledge to evolve over time. Because no matter what I would say at this point, it wouldn't really make a lot of difference because the way you framed it, I don't have a way in. So I'm just saying,
I don't think I was rude or.
I didn't say you were rude.
Okay.
No, I wasn't. I said the way you framed it. I wasn't trying to say you were rude.
I think I just framed, the issue at hand and tried to provide as soft a landing as possible. And I don't think I presumed anything. I just went off the things that you had just said to us. But I just would like to know, why do you want to be on this commission?
I thought I was being fairly honest when I said it before. I mean, I wanted to be on the commission because these are issues that are near and dear to my heart. And I've experienced them from your perspective somewhat peripherally. And here was an opportunity for me to contribute. And so that's why I put in the application. I don't know what else I can tell you other than that.
So I think for the collective, one of the things to acknowledge and to just lift up is the tension that is present. And it's not good, bad, right, wrong, or indifferent. There's a lot of communal work that has happened. There's a lot of obstruction to the work of justice that has happened, which is how we get to the need for a truth commission in Iowa City. And in the process of that, of developing a truth commission are Black and brown people who have not had the space to be empowered. And it's not directed to any one person, but white supremacy as an idea has created the reality that Black and brown people do not feel, and not even feel, do not experience an empowered presence in the place that is home for them, in the structure that is home. And even in we've heard one another's stories of how we have gotten here. You all shared, your own testimonies of some being denied the opportunity to be on commissions and having to battle their ways back into. That's real. A real question to hold for, and again, this is not right, wrong, or indifferent. A real question is, particularly in the work that is moving forward, knowing, will you be able to sit with the accountability of white supremacy by an embodied presence, even if that is not where you're coming from? Because there are questions, and they are justifiable, even if there is a need to think differently. And I really hope that I'm not trying to explain your or anybody, like I'm not trying to like brown-splain, like I'm not trying to, yeah. But the reality is, being present means that with all of the great intentions you may have, or anyone watching that will come, that anyone may have, that the presence of white supremacy in this space, in this community, in the world, has created such a divide and justifiable mistrust. And are we going to be able to sit with, work through, and hold ourselves accountable as we move through that, to create some space of common justice for the people of Iowa City? And that's around the table for everybody in the room. Because it's a fair place. Like that is what racism gets us. It is not a blessing for anyone. Vernon, like it's not a privilege for any. It's like it really is the worst place of existence to believe in the idea and to have to live with the idea of white supremacy as it manifests in life. But it's something that we have to hold, and we have to hold ourselves to grappling with, because there are going to be people who ask the question. There are going to be people who don't want to come to the table if it's not a place where we could put it on the table,
Oh, go ahead.
I'm going to be honest. Your presence alone is going to be harmful. It's going to feel harmful, probably to a lot of people. And to just even take it further, if I went into the Black community and they were like, I don't want to work with her, I'm going to know my place and I'm going to step away. I'm going to step back, because you know what I mean? So I just hope that this is something that you'll consider. I do have concerns about like the white savior type mentality. I hope there's nothing that comes into play with that. I really hope you're here as a servant for, the people just as we are. And I don't want to assume your background. I don't know what you've been through, but we're coming from places of pain. This is not, like academics. It can be, but a lot of us are coming from pain, from, hundreds of years of trauma that have taken place in our communities. So want to give you a chance. I do hope that I hope that you've considered these things and really thought about them even before you stepped into this space. Honestly, when I heard that we were going to have a white man on the team, I was like, what? Then I felt like I want to give him a chance because you never know. But honestly, I did feel some type of way in the beginning of the meet. I still feel some type of way. And that's part of this. We're going to feel some type of way a lot of times. So I'm sure it might be pretty uncomfortable right now.
It's fair.
And I hope that you kind of embrace that. So yeah, I don't want this to, I'm not trying to like attack you. I don't think anyone's trying to attack you, but there are some very valid concerns with you coming to the table, and I just hope you can consider that. I hope you can, do your best to try to not let that like touch your ego and really see where people are coming from with the distrust or the pain and things of that nature. And I hope that makes sense.
And I'm going to be honest that I'm probably one of the ones that maybe think a little bit differently than some of the other voices here. Not that, obviously I can't deny that, I've been in Iowa since I was 8 for the most part. I mean, yes, I've experienced racism and still do, but I also don't, and I'm not saying that this is what is happening or anything like that, but I also don't want to do to someone else what has been done to me. And that is at face value, I said, make assumptions based off of whatever. And so I do believe in at least giving a chance, seeing what can happen, and hoping that, yes, using your privilege to do the right thing. And I hope you have thick skin because you're going to need it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm perfectly fine with, if this is okay with everybody else, saying, I don't know, what's a reasonable amount of time? 3 months from now, we have the conversation again. Does everybody still feel the same way? Is my presence somehow constraining the discussion? Is there something about my presence that's preventing things from moving forward? Because the bottom line is, you all want this thing to move forward, right? It can't go backwards, it can't be stagnant, it has to move forward. If my presence is preventing that, then I have to change something about the way I'm present, or I have to excuse myself. So, but I'm not giving up day one, right? I mean, I'm interested, I'm committed. I think I have something to bear, I can bring to bear that will be helpful. If it turns out that it doesn't work, then it doesn't work.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to Lauren and say that I don't think that what I was saying was trying to, give back to somebody what I've experienced in life.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, this is strictly talking about power dynamics and how that works within what we're doing. And how we need to just give brown and black folks the power here, period. Brown and black folks need the power on this commission because that's what it's about. It's about overcoming racism and historical trauma and all these other things that we're talking about. If that's the case, it's just a very simple equation. And so I will question a white person's motives for being on this commission. I will question that, and I will continue to do that, because anybody that wants to be on this commission that does not have the lived experience makes me uneasy.
It's Commissioner Johnson. First and foremost, I would like to welcome you to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. I feel like truth, personally, is a truth from everybody. No matter what, we can all branch off and bring something forward. I've always been a believer that hopefully we can all work together towards the same goal to make sure that things work out. I don't know you from a can of paint, but I would hope that if you have come into this position that you will take it seriously, and I don't see any reason why not so far. I personally, I come from a very mixed background of a lot of different people from between sex and religion and color of skin. I do not believe that one way is the only way. I feel like the more we can work together, we can accomplish a lot of things a lot faster. You might be the voice, as far as I'm concerned, that might be able to go to the Klan and talk to the Klan and get them to come in to talk to us and so on and so forth from a lot of examples that we had before. Truth is universal. And sometimes I feel like in this position, we're gonna have to deal with a lot of multiple different truths, and it's gonna be hard, and I feel like it's gonna be difficult. And I really hope that this doesn't become the new extravagant controversy, so we're in the papers to argue back and forth for the next few weeks. I am not in the mood for that at all. I really want to get things done, and I really hope that you can help contribute just as much as anybody else on this board has who's been here. We've had a lot of controversial things going on this board. That was a waste of time, an absolute waste of time, an absolute waste of energy, and especially in situations that are far superior than just personal. That's how I've seen a lot of these situations take place. I still believe that we need a more diverse board as well, because truth comes from multiple different places. We have an Asian community that's not represented right here. We have multiple other communities that's not represented right here. But everyone has their truth. Now, just because we look a certain way does not mean that I am going to ignore the things that you say. I am going to take that and bring it to me to try to grow as a person, try to learn a little bit more about you, because the more I learn about you, the more you learn about me, we find out that we're a lot alike. And there's a lot of things that we can do in the future that can hopefully work together towards the same goal. I don't know how popular what I'm saying is going to be, but I personally believe that needs to be said. There's going to be a lot of uncomfortability, no matter what. There's going to be uncomfortability. We know this just from what we were being told and by what we were watching yesterday. There's no stopping the uncomfortability. It's just, I feel uncomfortable, but yet you persevere and you push through because somebody has to. And we have to work together in order to make sure that we get things done. That's my own personal belief. So once again, I welcome you to the team, and I hope that we can move forward and really make progress here. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. I'll just say just a couple more things. The notion of difficult dialogues is central to any sort of growth and any sort of movement forward. And I am fundamentally a pragmatic person. Talking and talking and talking, we just talk. So we have to somehow figure out how to go from talking to doing to accomplishing to changing something. Because, you know, the fact that my skin is white, and maybe this is a little bit harsh, but maybe not. It's just that I am not harmed as much as all of you by white supremacy. But don't think for a minute that I'm not harmed. because it affects me every fucking day. It affects my family. It affects my friends. And it has to stop.
If it's okay, are you going to say something? I just want to say, I don't know what to say. As chair, I welcome you to this commission, as I said over there. I have my reservations. I am a Black woman who was born and raised in Iowa, so I know what it's like to live in Iowa. And I feel like, I'm just speaking off the cuff right now, I feel like I am one of the first. I trust white people more than my fellow friends of color because of my experience here. On this, so I have an issue right now where I'm trying to find a way to trust what you're saying, but I'm also traumatized about everything that we've been through, and I hope that we can trust what you're saying and that you will contribute to this commission. I hope that everything that we've been working towards, it's taken almost 3 years to get to, will not be dismantled because we have a white man on this commission. I hope that you can sit in that and understand that. I will say I have two concerns about some of the way you presented yourself in the beginning when it was asked. It felt just a tiny bit defensive. I completely believe in standing your ground, but I also hope when you choose to stand your ground, you are also considering listening to the Black and brown people on this commission and our feelings about it. Mm-hmm. You're right, I don't know your family. I don't know what you've been through. I don't know how it affects you. I hope you can share with us exactly how it affects you, because that will make you more human to us. It would be very helpful, actually, if you can share that. If you feel comfortable.
Yeah,
you don't have to do it now.
Yeah, that's a little too fast.
That's understandable. The one thing, the key word to go back to is empathy. Empathy. Period. We are all people. We all go through our struggles, and we've all been there to a certain level and degree. Like I said, I don't know you from a can of paint. I have no idea who you've loved. I have no idea who you've lost. I have no idea what you've been through. I am not going to throw judgment immediately at all. Until we find out exactly who a person is, we cannot from immediately just hearing about someone joining in, we can't automatically put up our defenses and expect somebody else not to put up their defenses as well.
I'm so sorry, I don't want to push back too hard on that, Cliff, but just like Stephanie said, we are justified in our mistrust. It doesn't mean, and I'm not saying, I'm just saying, like, yes, you are a human being, and you're probably a good person, just like any other white person that I come across. But because I'm a Black woman, I have to live with that mistrust every day when I walk out, because I'm not sure. I'm not sure what's going to happen. So we can have that guard up, because that's what our lived experiences are. And so I agree, let's give everyone a chance. I don't want to say how many months or whatever, let's give everyone a chance, but I hope that you don't prove us wrong.
And I want to respond to Cliff too, like saying that, there's a lot of people that aren't represented here right now, so that's one less person from the BIPOC community that's not going to be represented. Asian American, Muslim, Latino, Latina, migrant, I could go on and on and on and on, but there is like a real diverse, group out there in this city that is not being represented, and we've been working really hard to get that representation, right? And so that's just one less seat that we can have, one less voice that can be on this committee to represent those voices that are being oppressed.
I agree that those positions can be filled by other groups, but a voice is a voice of truth, regardless. And at the same time, those applications were out there. I would hope that each person from those communities, they had the opportunity to join in. And when somebody else steps in, I'm not going to shoo them away or make them feel uncomfortable if they are the ones who stepped up and are in a position. Now, once we are in the position, now it's about getting the job done. That's all. That's the most important part right there. If we take this and we take it to heart to a point where the job can't get done, then it all falls apart.
Getting the job done is a real militaristic way of looking at things. This is not just about getting the job done, okay? Like, this is about how the job is done. This is a process intentionally. A Truth and Reconciliation Commission intentionally is a process. And so the job needs to be done with great care, responsibility, and thought, and understanding of how difficult it is to deal with the severity of the racism, of the oppression, the genocide, the erasure of all the things that we've been dealing with, all the things that are coming through us from our people, all the people that will be coming to see us. So this is not just about getting a job done. I just want to be very clear about that.
I'll just add for the sake of holding space, and I know Eduardo, you have something to say. What we are experiencing in this moment, and even for those who are online, is the essence of why this Truth Commission is necessary, because we all enter into this from many points of engagement on the sphere. I lack of better words, right? And there is a lot, again, stepping 30,000 feet back, there's also a lot of educating that we see is going to be necessary in order to get us to the common ground and common space. A thing that we don't necessarily have the time today, but we might have to build it in, as we move forward, is examining the apparatuses that prevent, when we say, to Melinda's point, when we say similar words, it doesn't mean we might use the same language, but we're not saying the same thing, And yes, there is and has been an application process. We know that. But the apparatus of white supremacy and the state for people who are denied and obstructed power means that how we come to an application process is never going to be the same, which is part of what some of your commissioners are sharing. Just because the call went out in the newspaper or however, online, at a city council, it could have been publicly at a city council meeting that a call went out for the commission. People, particularly women of the global majority, don't always get access. And you cannot just rely on, okay, well, it was publicized publicly. You have to go find, invite, and almost sit down and write an application for those who have been generationally disavowed space in the room. We heard that in testimony, right? Like somebody had to go find you to get you to this room. Even when Christy filled out her application, it was denied, and somebody had to fight for her to get in the room. So when she says that the possibility of somebody else's presence not being here, if I am an undocumented Latina, I'm not putting my name on an application to be on a commission governed by the state. But we need you in the room. And we also need to make way for you to know that you are empowered enough, she is empowered enough to be a commissioner. And so when we say and talk about interrogating our privilege, absolutely, the fact that white supremacy exists robs you of just walking in the room as, I'm sorry, what's your name again? Lou, right? You don't get to just show up. You have to walk in the room as a white man because that's what white supremacy has constructed. So it robs you of just being Lou. So there's harm in that, right? And there's harm on all sides. It's experienced different, but that's the reality. Like, you don't just get to be your mama's baby, you know? Because we are constructed in these ways. And knowing that, so in being that, it also, all of these things are operating at the same time in relationship with, we got to be able to hold that as truth. And to know that that is very real for why somebody else is not in the room. And it will impact. And again, I'm not trying, like, trust me, I am not trying to make friends of anybody, you know, or force relationship of anyone. But it is because I have been blessed to intellectualize, like there's a privilege to get in a place and to be able to intellectualize these things, to teach these things, but also to, in the trauma of living it, like the duality of these things, it has to be able to be in the room if you all are going to work together. And this is just fortunately, it's because it's a both and. This is just where we are. Like it ain't no way to feel about, you know, it just is what it is, you know? And it's in the space. Nobody has to defend it. Nobody has to be offended by it. It just is what. Is Rosemary Spalding on the Zoom? Because that means my mama watching. She not? It just is what the fuck it is. You know?
Preach on.
And it is not to say that anyone is less right or wrong or whatever. This is what the hell white supremacy has put us in. To the point, and again, I don't find it to be a bad thing or whatever, like, because this is my zhush or whatever. But it, like, we gotta move shit out the way. Like, we just cannot proceed. Like, all, like, you know, we just can't come in here and just eat some Indian food and be like, what? It's gotta be like, whatever y'all thought that y'all was coming to do today, you can't do it today because we got to work some stuff out. Because this is what white supremacy has done to us. And it has done it to all of us. That we can no longer, we are not yet living in the space of spirit and divineness of who we are. So I just hope that helps, because you don't have to defend it. What the best thing to do is to hear what has been said, know and walk in who the fuck you are and live it. Like, just to know it and do it. Because what, as we say on the street, what's understood don't gotta be said. Because you just do it. You don't have to. And so I am asking you, And y'all can, as a commission, not everybody else, but y'all can be like, I don't want her to come back. But please keep Think Peace. But y'all can be like, I don't want her to come back. But I am asking that you hear what's present, go to the space that you need to go to know yourself, and decide if you are able to live in what is real and continue to do this work, however that looks, whatever the determination and decision or whatever that looks like. But am I committed enough to the work of justice that I might need to lay down my life? And lay down my life doesn't mean I gotta get killed, but I might need to fall back. Sometimes some of us gonna have to fall back so that others can know that they have the power to step up, because it has been robbed of them so much. I probably said too much.
Go ahead, Eduardo.
So thank you, guys. So I have worked 20 years with truth commissions, different countries all over the place. And this must be the weirdest welcome to a new commissioner I have ever seen. And, but also, it may be one of the most honest events I have seen at Truth Commission. And I think this is a very good, important debate. We are debating with our ideas, and obviously we're also debating with our bodies. We decide to stay or not stay around the table. So that's also a decision. And I understand why it happens. It happens because truth commissions are not created in societies that are harmonious, that are fair, that are just, that have healed or have reconciled. Truth commissions are created in societies that are divided, where people don't trust each other. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a reason to do that. And that's the paradox. They are created in places where it is very difficult they're going to work. And yet, the only thing I can bring to the table is comparative experience. There have been many truth commissions established. All of them, like your commission, have been established to look into issues that are extremely serious, brutal, terrible. In my own country, 69,000 people killed by the state and by the Shining Path. Including, there's no person I know in Peru who is not a victim or a relative of a victim or knows someone in his, her extended circles that was a victim in those years, including the members who ended up being in the commission or the staff members like I am. And so even in those places, commissions were established, and somehow they managed to work. If you saw the videos yesterday, and I didn't select them because of that, but I'm thinking now, when you look at the South African Truth Commission, of course, it's presided by Archbishop Tutu, a fighter against apartheid. The vice president is a white pastor, Alex Moraine, one of the sweetest persons I know, who was a personal mentor, passed away a few years ago, with a smile on his face because he was a just man. And that commission had members of all political persuasions in South Africa. The Truth Commission in my country, in Peru, I guess you saw the declaration yesterday in the video, selected a former minister of the dictatorship to be a member of the commission, the white woman that was speaking in the video, and that after 2 years working in the commission and doing what you do in a truth commission, which is to listen to testimony, to participate in exhumations, to clean up human bodies for identification, at the end of those 2 years, she publicly apologized to the nation for her role in the dictatorship and also for the fact that her class was all the time giving it back to the country and to the people who suffer there. And so the commissions I know have tried to do that. Of course, it's possible to have a commission that decides this is going to be a closed environment and only for those people who have been harmed. It is possible. Now, if that is done, then there are a number of additional questions that need to happen. First, would it be possible to keep those closed spaces for some activities of the commission? Or is it that the commission itself needs to be a closed space? So, for example, many truth commissions have organized activities for victims of sexual violence. And they decided those activities are not going to be public. Those activities are going to be closed. In those activities, we're going to have only female commissioners presiding. And they decided to organize their work that way. But that didn't mean that the commission itself was going to have only women. Another issue that is important, the commission sits in an uncomfortable place between society and government because it was established by government. And so the question is, do we use that fact to disrupt government? Do we use that fact to create positions out there in that institution that has damaged people so much, government? That is the question. It depends on what do you want to do there. I remind you that in the case of Iowa City, at the very beginning, when the first crisis of the commission happened, there was a People's Truth Commission established. So that has already been tried. And it had to be dissolved by the decision of the organizers themselves, because they themselves thought that that particular line of action was not being productive. Even though it was called the People's Truth Commission, right? It rejected this Truth Commission and it rejected any kind of activity by the city. Those things can be done, and I remember I interacted with them, I participated in meetings with them, because I honestly thought, well, perhaps it's a very good idea to have a commission created by the city and a commission created by society. Why not? And if right now someone wants to do that, perhaps they should. You know, because it's going to help the dialogue, it's going to help the discussion that needs to happen. So that would not be a problem, in principle. So what's the usefulness of having a diverse commission? So first of all, honestly, when I read and Laura is here, she will not let me lie. When I first read the original mandate, my first question was, why is this commission, why is it that this commission is not going to have white people in it? So it was exactly a contrary reaction to the one you had, right? So I was, what? Because my thinking was, racism and white supremacy is a societal ill. It's a sin. It's something that affects the entire society. And the entire society is called to address it. There is a big risk that if you say, all right, only those who have been harmed are going to create a commission, there is a big risk that someone is thinking, you know what, let's put them in the corner, they speak among themselves, we don't pay attention, and then when they come the next time, we're going to say, we gave you the Truth Commission, what are you complaining about? Right? So that cornering is very complicated and dangerous. A few years ago, I was supporting the work of the Maine Wabanaki Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And in that case, also big part because of, partly because of design, partly because of how things worked, it ended up being a commission only for one given community, basically the Wabanaki nations. And they did an excellent job. I'm very happy with the result of the job. The report is excellent, they organized hearings, they did everything. Problem is, no one in Maine knew the commission existed, because it was a section of community that did not have access to media, did not have any kind of representation out there. So as much as they did a commission, to this day, many people have no idea that it existed. And it was a good commission, right? So, because the other thing here is, and I'm not saying this because of reconciliation, I'm not a believer in reconciliation, to be honest, but I'm a believer in truth. And truth does not appear because it's revealed. Truth is painfully constructed in discussions like this. It's incredibly difficult and painful to build it. And honestly, you don't plan the truth at the beginning. The truth comes at the end when you chip out the lies. And you're not going to finish that project. You're just starting it, right? And what I really think that commissions do is they reduce the number of possible lies. And to reduce the number of possible lies, you need as many voices as possible, to be completely honest. I'm convinced of that, having seen the experience of many commissions, many places. So there are options. If we look into this with a practical sense, which is necessary, we may find those options. Otherwise, this commission is going to continue a situation that has happened since 3 years already. That is, every time it tries to start, something happens. And this something, interestingly enough, doesn't happen outside in society, it happens within the commission. Proving what we are saying, that commissions happen in places that are divided. And for them to happen, something completely miraculous needs to happen. That in spite of all the distrust that we have learned, and that it is completely rational and completely logical to distrust, we do a jump of faith. And we say, look, I'm going to try to make it work, in spite of everything that experience shows me, right? And so this is where we are. That's the reality. And as usual with Iowa City's TRC, everything we planned went out of the window. So out of, 9 different topics that we had, probably we have covered 1.5, and I don't know how much time we have now, but it's not a matter of time. It's a matter of honesty, and I think that this is the effort we are doing. I really like that, in our convoluted way, we're getting to that point. So hopefully this helps.
Absolutely. And again, the topics that we are trying to get at, in some way, we're actually getting to them. It's just not structured in the way we imagined or what have you. And this is what works best for the people who have to live through this. So I think at this moment, we probably need to take 10 and find ourselves. So as we are coming back to work with each other, that song was written by Tim's and performed by Rihanna for the production of Wakanda Forever in the memory of Chadwick Boseman. And I don't know if you all know him as an actor. He played the Black Panther, but he also battled pancreatic cancer in the midst of his career that very few people knew the severity of him battling the cancer. And his comment and tribute to the world, what he left to his family, that he never became the disease. He didn't share with others because he never wanted to be the disease, but he wanted to live his life completely exhausted of his purpose so that there was nothing withheld as he made his transition. And I just think that the honoring of even those who are on set with him in Wakanda Forever, envisioning a world like Wakanda of Black divinity. I think that that's such a gift that one would completely live to the fullest in the life that they have to possess. So I'm going to turn it over to our co-facilitator, Larry. Take it away.
Thank you very much. Hi.
Hello.
You guys know how I roll. Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
You'll pick up. I want to acknowledge that there's no place in the world that I could experience what I experienced tonight here. It was historic. It was life-changing. And so you gave me that gift by allowing me to bear witness to it. And I appreciate that, both my colleagues and the commissioners. Part of my task is to talk to you about some facets of this work that I have up there on the screen. And it's okay if you're not feeling exactly like the people in that stock image are. Especially because nobody can freeze in that position. I mean, who smiles like? I don't know. But besides going for some alliteration, what I'm here to talk about tonight is a sort of a third leg of a Truth and Reconciliation Commission stool. Eduardo has probably said this in the past, but part of the challenge with Truth and Reconciliation work is that what gives it a substantial amount of its power is the stories. There's nothing more powerful, is there? I mean, than hearing someone directly tell you their story. But commissions have recognized that those stories need to be paired with other sources of truth. And part of what we have to unpack and what I'm wrestling with as a person of my own identity is, what does that actually mean? What do facts mean? What does fact-finding mean? And as it relates to the other two, it may be a little nostalgic or quaint of me to remind folks of this, but the reason that I initially got involved was because there was a request for facilitation services for the TRC. And what I want to think about with you tonight is what you'd like that to look like, because no two groups are facilitated in the same way. No two groups have the same needs of a facilitator. And no two people define facilitation in the same way. And so part of what I'm hoping we can do is think about what that looks like and how consensus can emerge. Stephanie has graciously agreed to advance my slides. So next. If you don't mind, ma'am, I'm sorry. I've got some animation. If you'll click another time or two. I'm going to ask you to do this privately because of where we are in the evening, except for the last question. But the top questions are meant to encourage you to think carefully about what it is that you've heard so far from each other and from us. We are actors in this, even if we are striving to lay groundwork for you to conduct the play. So what did you learn that surprised you? What did you hear that gave you pause? And then Stephanie, if you'd click once more. This is the part, I'm sorry, 2 more times. This is the part that I do want you to give some thought to and answer for me, because I'd like to know what specifically you want to know about fact-finding, about facilitation, and one more click about consensus building. So I'm going to give you 60 to 120 seconds. Either put some thoughts down on paper or just think about it, and then on the next slide it's blank, and I'm going to input the questions that you have so that I can try to address them over the course of the presentation. So the questions that you have about fact-finding, about, oh, I'm sorry.
Go back one. Sorry. Thank you, Stephanie.
Slide 2. Yeah. So the questions that you want answered related to fact-finding, facilitation, and consensus building. And in full transparency, there may be questions that I don't know the answer to, or questions that it would be hard for me to answer fully tonight. You have my commitment that I'll follow up with you if I can't cover it tonight. Oh, yes, ma'am. Yeah, you can. Oh, you want to verbalize? Go ahead. let me, yeah, I was just giving folks a chance to jot ideas down, but you're welcome to go ahead, and I'll start typing. Yeah.
I think right now he wants us to think about the first two questions, and he's going to ask us.
Then he said he was going to ask us to write. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry if I was confusing. So the first two are just things for you to reflect on. I'm not going to set time aside for that right now. The third one, though, I am interested in knowing the questions you want answered tonight on these three topics. And so take a moment if you need it to jot some stuff down, and then if anybody's ready with questions, I'll take them.
Well, my first question, Larry, is I don't think I've heard consensus building. That
Haven't
term.
heard of it, okay.
I don't know what that is.
Right. Is that okay? Okay.
My question is, how are you going to go about the fact-finding?
Does that work?
I want to add to that. Do you have access to the van? Do you guys know how to research census data and download it? And where can we get statistics? That's been a huge question of mine for a very long time with the work that I do, also just because there's so little out there on the oppression that Black and brown folks face.
Access to data on oppression.
Yeah, so maybe like you'll have to work with universities to get that, or I mean, we will, whoever that is, I don't know. And you know, like honestly, we're gonna have to get a lot of this data from the community. We're gonna have to like create our own statistics, which is what we're doing in Sioux City right now, like creating our own statistics on missing and murdered Indigenous relatives.
Sure.
I guess the last, well, my question is, I'm sure you're going to show us what it looks like how expansive is it, like what is it gonna, what the final product is, I guess.
When I think about facts, I think about the legal background and fact-finding with that. My question is like things that are not in the sort of that legal realm, and trying to find out, so what are those facts and what are, how do you look for that that's different than the legal way?
Got it. This is actually an optometric exam. That's why the font got so small.
Back to fact-finding, maps are going to be important. So it's more of a comment than a question, I guess. So we all know how this city is laid out already and the issues with that and the history with that. Like, for instance, the cob shop that was built on the east side. So that will be an important thing to plot on our map, things like that. I would call it like and like racial justice map or something, you know?
I'm sure it goes without saying, but you can interrupt me throughout the time I'm talking with other questions. But if there are any others that folks want to make sure I have up on screen.
Sorry. Who do you imagine facilitating? Do we, as the Truth Commission, figure that out ourselves? I mean, of course, we probably would work with you guys, but it would be nice to have, I think, the Truth Commission be facilitators as like leaders in our community, but not just us, but like, you know, empower other people in the community to be facilitators. I think that's the best way to do it. And then in terms of consensus building, man, I just feel like that's going to be really hard. And so, like, I would love to know what you guys have done in the past to, you know, make that make that work, I guess.
Okay. Okay if we leave it there for the moment? Anybody else? Sorry about the size of the
You can
font.
combine it with the first one.
Pardon me?
You can combine it with the first one, where what is consensus building and how do you make it work?
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. Great. Stephanie, we can actually jump to slide 5 and go slideshow on it. I appreciate y'all's questions, and again, I'll go back to that slide later to see if I've covered things, and also that's not exclusive. If you think of things, just jump in. One of the reasons that I chose this slide to be as it is I didn't put an image because I think as I interrogate my positionality, I realize that I come from an upbringing where I was told to trust information coming from certain sources, right? And some of those sources were institutions that are, quite frankly, under attack today because of their proving themselves to be untrustworthy. And some of them were the institutions that my parents and my grandparents trusted. You know, the story of the American Jewish experience is largely one of kind of wrapping themselves around higher education as a way to combat discrimination. If we have a degree, the saying went, it's harder for them to shut us out. But the problem with that is here I am today putting a disproportionate amount of trust in scholarship, in news coverage, in institutions that I thought were trustworthy that may or may not be. So I want to acknowledge that, and visually what I was trying to say here is facts are not black and white. They are never simple, and they won't be here. I do want to ask you for just an initial impression answer, brief if you don't mind, just so that we can cover a lot of territory. On that first question, when you hear fact-finding, what comes to mind, just reflexively? What do you think of?
Numbers.
Numbers?
Yes, information to corroborate somebody's story.
Information to corroborate a story?
History.
History?
Truth.
Truth? I think that the point that Vice Chair Merritt just made about corroboration is something that a lot of commissions would resonate with, and we'll talk about. Because the reality is, when someone tells their story, it's hard for it to be more than just their story, right? In other words, it's their story, but we can't know that it's 15 other people's stories. But if we have something besides that in the way of information, maybe it's 15 other people's stories, right, that come forward, or maybe it's documentation of some kind, or maybe it's some other source of fact or data that, again, can corroborate. That's a very powerful notion in other commissions. So I want you to just hold on to that. These remaining questions, though, are things that you all will ultimately have to answer. In other words, you'll have to decide what makes something factual for purposes of your report to the council. You'll have to decide what standards you should use to identify something as fact. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. And most importantly, for what I can do to help you and what our team can do to help you, you have to think about the facts that need to be found in order for you to do what you've been asked to do. And that is not easy, because there are a lot of things out there that need to be investigated. So you will have these, of course, I'm sure you know, to refer back to. But as part of hopefully strategic doing in September, I hope that part of the conversation can, come at these questions in a certain way. And you'll hear about that from V after I am done. This image on the right is of Reverend Nelson Johnson. He is, in my opinion, worthy of a Nobel Prize for his body of work. He's from Greensboro, North Carolina, and he was one of the survivors of what is commonly known as the Greensboro Massacre, the 1979 shooting of 5 anti-Klan protesters in front of the news media in cold blood and broad daylight. He was one of the dearest friends of some of the people who died, and he eventually was one of the people who, along with his wife and others, birthed the Greensboro Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So for just a moment, I want to share with you a little bit of information about how Greensboro approached this, and it'll just be kind of a series of clicks. I think everybody knows this, but Greensboro is really different than what you all are doing, because Greensboro looked at an incident, although, as Eduardo, I think, said, they looked at an incident and tried to make sense of it in terms of a lot of other trends. But that's different, I think, than what you all have been charged with doing. So that's an important distinction. But these are some of the things that they looked at as it relates to fact-finding. And again, we're not talking about taking someone's personal testimony. That is critical and basic and integral to everything that you're doing. But what we're talking about is more archival, more written. Could be video, could be audio. But as you can see, they leaned heavily into records kept by police who neglected their community when they responded in 1979, testimony at the trials, both criminal and civil, that were conducted in which no one was found criminally liable, responsible, and then coverage in the media. And this really gets to what Vice Chair Merritt was saying, they thought about things in terms of a preponderance of evidence, which is to say, if 2 people were telling us conflicting things, where do we have more information on either side? Like, was there physical evidence that supports what one side said? Was there a third person that saw the exact same thing? That sort of thing. So that was just their standard, and that doesn't need to be your standard, but I wanted you to be aware of it as you think about how you will address this. They also asked some questions. For example, if they were hearing someone's story, did the story stay consistent? It's kind of an interesting thing, but I'm sure those of us who have observed the criminal justice process from one lens or another know that oftentimes in an interrogation, that's the objective, that is an objective, is to figure out if the story will remain consistent. And that was part of the way that that commission thought about how authentic the information was what they were recounting something they experienced firsthand or heard about. What sort of bias might they have had? Did their stories match up one to the next? Did they make sense? I know that may seem kind of obvious, but we need some sort of well-defined criteria that we can agree on as a group to evaluate the information that we receive, because there will be extraordinary amounts of it, and it will not all line up in one spot. If we could. So this is Canada, Prime Minister Trudeau and the 3 commissioners in the Canadian Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So one of the interesting things here, and I'm actually glad the council member is still with us, the Canadian government birthed the commission based on a settlement of a class action lawsuit. And part of the terms of that settlement were that the federal Canadian government had to turn over key documents to the commission, and they resisted over and over and over again, wasting untold amounts of time and resources for the TRC and probably for the Canadian people. And so I hope that the commission will consider what information the city could provide it that would be more easily obtained just by having them do that, as opposed to an exhaustive search, and then make that request of the city council while you're doing your work, not just at the end. And hopefully the city council would be receptive and allow the city manager and team to do that. These are some of the things that the Canadian TRC looked for and sought facts about. They, of course, were there, as Commissioner Novus mentioned yesterday, to scrutinize residential schools, which is really a euphemism for something much darker And so they needed to see records of police investigations of those schools along with an assortment of other records. If we can go to the next slide. The thing, but that's perfect where you are. The thing that I want you to notice is that this commission actually had over 100 different categories of records. They also had a $60 million budget.
No, this is like nationwide.
Canadian.
Yeah, so right, 60 million Canadian. I think that's about 20 American. I don't know.
Not bad. You're insulting me.
Just teasing. Thank you for that clarification. But I mean, this TRC had to cover an entire nation.
Almost 20 years.
And had to assess the experiences of, probably millions, if not hundreds of thousands of people. Now, I mention this because not to point to the magnitude, but to point to the diverse array of sources that they consulted. So people gave them physical objects that were relevant to understanding the experience that they had in residential schools. They gave them yearbooks, they gave them paintings, they gave them music, legislation, diaries, contracts, and cartoons. That's just a sampling. Obviously, I couldn't list all 113. But it really suggests to me that rather than focusing on the number of categories, I want to go back to what Dave and Melinda and Eduardo talked about yesterday, which is the incredibly diverse array of how people can convey their information. And they may not want to just sit and tell you about it. That may not be something they're ready to do or want to do, but they can paint it for you. They can show you a photograph. They can depict it in a variety of different ways. This is Maine, and I do want to defer to my colleague who was there on the ground. I'm sorry, Stephanie, I don't know. I think maybe go back. Yeah, if you could go back one. I'm sorry about that. To slide 8. So the fact-finding in Maine, which again also dealt with the treatment of indigenous children in foster care and in schools, focused on a couple of state archives, and these were some of the ways that they defined what they were looking for. Were they documents that related to tribal-state relationships? Were they related to incarceration of the Wabanaki people? Were they helpful in providing national context? You heard Terry talk about ICWA, the Indian Child Welfare Act. Could the information gleaned from these archives help understand how Maine was or wasn't complying with that federal law that keeps indigenous children, that's designed anyway to keep indigenous children within their tribal communities? So that's one batch. And then the second batch came from what's known as the Child and Family Services Archives. And so here's where you get to some of what Chair Dillard was talking about. These were reports that documented the makeup of children who were being removed from their homes into the child welfare system, alongside training-related materials, the relationship between the tribes and the states, and the state of Maine, and various other reports and recommendations. So obviously this isn't meant to be a cut and paste situation where you take exactly what is written here and you apply it to Iowa. But I think it's a helpful way to consider the body of information, the body of evidence that might be most useful to you. There's a little bit more from this archive that I'll just, actually this looks like a repetition. I apologize. They also produced some summary documents, and I actually think this could be very applicable to Maine. And as you can see, they essentially would compile a bunch of different sources to produce a timeline of the relationship to the Wabanaki and the state of Maine, how the Indian Child Welfare Act was and wasn't being appropriately utilized and trained on, and various recommendations that had already come out. I think it's fair to say that this is not the first time the people of Iowa City have talked about some of the things that you all are talking about. But obviously, more work has to be done, but it would be helpful to see what else has been recommended and what progress may have been made or not on those recommendations. That's just one idea. That's good. Next slide. So I'm showing you these for illustration only. This is not meant to be prescriptive, but what I've done here is just pulled a couple of different depictions of data that could be relevant in terms of the depiction itself and the source and the actual data. In other words, as you can see here, this breaks down the rates of food insecurity by race and ethnicity, and the line graph traces it over a decade or so period and shows you by percentage, also shows you the kind of the mean in the middle. And so this could be one way to do it, but I heard Commissioner Nobis talk about a map, a heat map of some kind that could show you, well, look, this part of town, it's very acute, that's in whatever color, bright red. This part, it's less acute, that could be a different color. So it's just one example of how this could be represented. But I think what I want you to take from this is, remember that you have an audience for this information. You have a public that is looking to you to provide them with the truth. And so the easier and more accessibly you can present that information to them, the more easily it will be understood and acted upon. Go ahead. This is just another illustration. It's another graph taken from the Prison Policy Initiative. I'm sorry, 1 second, if you could go back to 12. So not materially that different from the other, but again, allowing for a sort of a quick visual of a particular body of information. So these are not the only ways to do it, but these are a couple. So these are the questions that I think we will want to help you to answer. And I see my role as simply helping to facilitate that conversation. So when a couple of commissioners mentioned the role of the TRC, I hope that you all will take the lead. I don't see us as facilitators being the ones who need to do anything to control that process. I think people will respond to you all completely differently than they would respond to me. But my hope is that I can help you have this conversation at some point and then use that as a way to help with data collection, but also to arm you with the tools to then collect additional data yourself. And we can support that in whatever ways it feels best. I mean, we have the time, but we also want to know where we're going to be most helpful to you and add the most value. But these are, I think, the key questions that I will hope that you will reflect on after we leave this visit. And obviously, they're not simple questions, so you'll probably have a few weeks to think about it until you reconvene. Again, in no way meaning to be directive or prescriptive, but these are some of the things that I thought might be of interest. And again, you heard me talk about my, positionality, academic, person who leans into facts, whatever that might be. So this all needs to be taken with a whole measuring cup of salt, not a grain of salt. It's just my bird's eye view. But some of these things, I think, could help to illustrate what I heard Commissioner Nobis describe as oppression. I don't know if that would become apparent to all through understanding certain disparities like the ones I've listed here, but this could be a starting place as it relates to information that's relatively available compared to other kinds of information that may be harder to come by. And there's going to be a variety of different ways to get at this information, and there could be some resistance to getting some of the information, and we have to think about that also. So this will be another key question for you to answer is what the topics really ought to be. Let me pause there and just ask if there's anything you'd like to, Chair Dillard asked about the mechanics. And I think that is going to be up to you all, of course. But for me, what I'm thinking of is you all give to us some direction as to what help you'd like us to give you in terms of collecting data and information. And then periodically, we should be sharing with you what we've found to allow you to then say, well, wait a second, that doesn't jive with the lived experience I've had or the other stories that I've had, can you look for this other piece of information? I heard something very interesting before this session. Would you feel comfortable if could you share it actually? Because it was really helpful to me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I was just reminding us and Larry that the apparatuses used to seek for facts often are not as unbiased as we think. They are rooted and grounded in biases. And the example that I utilize is the way in which data can be manipulated based on the kinds of questions and the things that we are asking. For most people, if you just generally are in society, the data will articulate that Black men are absent from their children's lives. The data will say that. But the data will also tell you that Black males are the highest percentage of male parental influence in their children's lives, right? And sometimes it's the kinds of questions that are being used to create that data. From the, if you're looking for who's in a household based on leases and mortgages, you might not find a Black man listed because of the way that the state engages or blocks Black men from being listed as being a part of a household, but they're present. And when we start accounting for like the hours and the time that is spent with their children, Black men spend more hours and daytime with their children. So we have to be mindful and culturally appropriate and sensitive and think of the ways that white supremacy is also impeding how we get at what is factual, so to speak.
And that's why I made mention of bringing stuff to you before we're finished, because it's really important that I be aware of blind spots that I might have, or my colleagues, as I'm pulling information out. I would never have known, I don't think, what Stephanie just shared had she not shared it, because I was only aware of a particular part of that story. So there will be times where I don't know the question to ask of the data, and that's why I want you to see it. There could even be a way for us to provide like I'd have to talk to Stephanie and others, but like shared drive access, like Google Drive or SharePoint, or I'm seeing a nod of the head no, but
we can do that.
well, anyway, there are ways that we can disseminate what we're finding to you besides just being in a meeting. That's really the point I wanted to make. And so then you can come back to me and say, can you look for this, or what about this other question, and then we can help you. Let me keep going just in the interest of time. I'm sorry.
We got I don't want to not have space. 15 minutes. Okay. Okay, so maybe like 10 more minutes.
Okay, so I was speaking with Commissioner Johnson for a moment on the break about the role that we as facilitators can play. I'm going to move through these quotes that I'll just have you read at a different time. Stephanie, we can keep moving to the next. Here's one definition that I have used, again, from the standpoint of studying this in an academic setting and then practicing it. Doesn't mean it's the definition. It means it's a definition. But one thing I want you to be aware of is there is a connection between the word facilitate and the word in Latin, and I assume, Eduardo, correct me, but in Spanish, how do you say easy?
How do I say what?
Easy.
Fácil.
Facile. So there's a real connection between the role that a facilitator is meant to play and the ease with which it allows you to do your work. Meaning that we're not just there to, light a metaphorical fire and let you all, get burned by it. We're there to structure the conversation in a way that we think will help you get to your true feelings, but also perhaps get to a decision point. We can go to the next. We can actually skip. This is pretty redundant. So we are designed, in my practice anyway, to be walking a very careful line between neutrality, which some people take to mean no feelings at all. There is no such thing as a neutral person, right? That doesn't exist. No one is without opinion, without feeling, without values. But what I try to do when I'm facilitating is I try to take whatever that is that I'm feeling or thinking about the substance of what you're talking about and put that on the prairie. Is that? I'm a city guy, so I don't know if I'm allowed to put things in prairies, but I'll put it there anyway. Okay. Nice. Okay. So I often try to, because I often will facilitate in my own community, and I vote in city elections, and I care about the issues. But when I'm facilitating, I try to keep a space between what I feel on that topic and the way I'm facilitating. But there's another way of thinking about this. I don't know if this will be something that my colleagues have used, but I really like it. It's called multi-partial or multi-partiality. And it just means that I'm biased towards you, and I'm biased towards you, and I'm biased towards you, right? I am empathic. I am warmly receiving what everybody is contributing to it. And that's actually tricky also, in addition to being neutral, but it informs for me how I'm not just sitting there like unfeeling. I'm feeling with you, but I need to feel with all of you. I can't just feel with the person whose views line up with my views. But as you notice, I don't have any, the facilitator doesn't have any decision-making authority. The facilitator doesn't dictate what the group does. The facilitator lays out a proposed agenda, a proposed set of agreements perhaps, but the facilitator doesn't make the decision. The facilitator helps identify ways for the group to improve its processes and to increase its effectiveness. Go ahead, Stephanie. This is relatively straightforward, but one of the things that I feel is critical is not just to set up the meeting in a strong, positive way, but to make sure that after the meeting or as the meeting is winding down, everybody understands where we're going next and has the action items that they need, and that we identify those together. Because it's really easy to want to just leave the meeting and forget about it, and that's sometimes healthy, but in your case, you have a lot of work to do. And so it's important as facilitator that we don't just, as I think Lou mentioned, we don't just have the conversation, but we identify the actions that are going to be taken after that. We'll skip this, I kind of covered it already. So this kind of gets at Chair Dillard's question about consensus. You're familiar with Robert's Rules of Order, yeah? I like to say that I named my second-born child after those rules. They are what they are, and I recognize that you all are an official body and have certain requirements. But as you can see, in the case of Robert's Rules, you have a posted agenda. In a facilitated setting, you have an agenda. You have something that guides what it is that you're going to talk about. Now, you may be asking, well, what is divergent or convergent thinking? Well, divergent thinking is kind of a fancy way of talking about brainstorming. Every idea is welcome. There's no censorship. Let's get as many ideas going as we can. Convergent thinking is saying, wow, we've got a lot of ideas on this topic, let's group those. Or we have a couple of different ideas that are in tension, let's figure out how we're going to resolve that. It's very difficult to do that in a Robert's Rules of Order setting because it's all dependent on voting and motions. And so the reason that facilitation helps is it gives you a lot more fluidity to act in the way that reflects what the group really wants, instead of just saying, well, I can't vote yes for that motion. Let's craft it together in a way that everybody can feel comfortable supporting it. And so we don't use motions and amendments much in the facilitations that I do. And then in the decision-making space, most often when we're following Robert's Rules, we take votes and majority wins. There's some cases when it's 2/3 or 3/4, but most of the time it's majority. What's the problem with that, do you think?
Well, if you have a majority, but that's 6-4, you still have, like, it's...
The 4 who lost that vote
Yeah.
will probably carry that and feel something not great. right? And so when I think about what consensus is, I think about it as that moment in which there's a decision that everybody feels comfortable accepting. It does not mean it's everybody's top choice, right? It doesn't mean that your first, what you would think of as like the best outcome and what Lauren does, that's magically appears. Maybe it does, but more often than not, it's, I'm backing this, I'm kind of yellow-green on it, right? Green meaning like I'm fully on board, yellow, I'm sort of cautiously optimistic, right? We don't want any reds, if you'll go with that traffic light metaphor. We don't want any people that feel that they simply cannot support it. That's when we need to step back. But what I strive to do in the facilitation is, let's say, for example, that Wangui proposes an idea and it has a lot of support, but it has a couple of folks who are really uncomfortable. I want to really understand why, but I also want to understand what would work in its place. And that's, again, the problem or the limitation of a motion, right? You make a motion, you have a second, it's just an up or down vote, and that's it. So in facilitation, we can ask those questions, we can get at it. The person who made the original suggestion can modify her suggestion, and so that's what we're striving for. And I just want to explain why I put this thing in the right-hand column, right? There are times when we meet and don't have any structure, and that happens. I mean, it's organically happening. We of course, think that facilitators can help. You all do this work, but just know that, of course, there are times when things can be very casual. But as you can see, a lot of times it's the squeakiest wheel who gets the grease. So this just illustrates it a little bit more to kind of expound upon what I was saying before. I will say that part of what I think keeps votes happening is that people see it as a transparency thing, an accountability thing, but quite frankly, when you come to consensus, then you are all willing to be held accountable for that decision. It doesn't really change the level of accountability. Now, there will be times perhaps that someone will say, let's just vote. And you're allowed to do that. And you're not going to hurt anybody's, you're not going to hurt my feelings. Sometimes it just needs to be completed. The decision, the conversation needs to be completed and a decision needs to be made. But I think that's something that the group needs to agree to, that yes, I'm comfortable taking a vote, and if the vote is majority not the way I like it, I will go along with it. I'm going to stop there, actually. There are a couple of other slides, but I'm going to stop there in the interest of time. The only thing that I want to say before I open it up for questions and just check on the question slide is the guiding light for facilitators like me, like our colleagues, is to make things easier for you. Not to do things our way, not to have you adopt some cool technique that we've developed, not to hear ourselves talk. Believe me, there are times when I'm facilitating that I'm very quiet. I don't need to call on everybody necessarily. That's okay. It's hard to believe that I could be quiet, isn't it, Vice Chair? But we're not there to meet a certain word baseline of how much we talk. If things are going well, if everybody's participating, if the agreements are being agreed to and abided by, then things are working out, and that's what we want to see happen. Let me just, Stephanie, if you don't mind, that third or fourth slide that I took notes on way back. Sorry. I just want to see if I've left anything out that's major. I think it's slide 6. No, I'm sorry. It's slide 3. I was right the first time. So as it relates to how we're going to go about the fact-finding, I think that is a bigger prairie kind of question, but in general, we're going to work with you to give us the marching orders that we need to help you with the work in terms of what sources we look for, how we report it. We do know how to access census data. I'll have to speak with you offline about the van piece. We do have access to data on oppression, although, again, It'll be very important that we know exactly how you define that so that we're not chasing our tails in terms of bringing back information that isn't helpful. So we'll talk about that. The question of what it looks like and how expansive it is what we'll talk about next time or in strategic doing. Facts outside of the legal realm, I think, is a very thoughtful question. And I think, if I understand your question correctly, I think there are facts to be gleaned that no government agency is holding, right? And so hearing from you what the topical piece of that is and where you think we could find it besides government data will be very helpful. We can make suggestions, but we'll want to look to you. I think that it really hits me when I hear Stephanie Spaulding's example. It's like there's what the numbers say and then there's what I experience. And we need to know when there's a big gap that you all see in that so that we can then look for information in some form or fashion to understand that better. The visual representation, we talked about that. As it relates to facilitating, I really like the idea and hope that we can find the way for you all to be empowered to do some of this fact finding, not to the extent that we're not fulfilling what we've been asked to do, but in such a way that we give you whatever it is that will help you to do that work and to not have it take up such an excessive amount of time that it becomes burnout material. So that's something we'll have to think about more deeply. Sakawas asked about how we can make, or how we have made consensus happen. I'll just say briefly that, and Annie would probably understand this to a much greater extent than I would, but one of the most powerful things I've ever learned doing this work is the difference between positions and interests. And I'm sure you've heard of this before. But it's this idea that a position could be something like, I'm pro-choice, I'm pro-life. That's a position. I'm for the new, housing development, I'm against it. That's a position. The interest in those cases could be, I care about bodily autonomy. So for a pro-choice person, that's really important to me. I am guided by a set of moral beliefs and I want my government to uphold them. That could be what a pro-life person's interest is. I want our neighborhoods to be economically diverse. That could be an interest that I have for supporting a housing development. I want to live only with people in a certain demographic. That could be a reason to oppose it. So an interest is that underpinning value that someone has. And so when I'm helping a group make a decision, I need to know what those interests are. I need to know what those interests are. So when someone tells me what their position is, I start digging. And I keep asking the why, to Wangui's point, over and over and over again until I feel like I've gotten the real reason why they feel the way they feel. What I then do with that is I put those interests up somewhere, right? Flip chart, dry erase, whatever it is. And as we're thinking about the decision, the action we're going to take, I benchmark it against those interests, right? So I'm not just asking people to decide whether they think it's a good idea or a bad idea. I'm asking, does it meet the interests that we've just articulated matter to us, right? So for example, an interest of ours might be it has to reduce oppression of black and brown people. That's an interest. And if we can't definitively say that a particular idea is going to do that, then maybe we don't advance it, right? It's a critical component of consensus, because if you don't understand why people feel the way they feel, then it's very hard to craft something that they can support. You have to understand what those underlying values are. I appreciate you all.
Thank you. Absolutely.
And give it to V.
Thank you. I might do this instead, just because sometimes I use my hands. So I have, I guess, the strategic doing slide deck when you get a chance. One thing while Stephanie's getting that ready, one thing I failed to mention, sometimes I freeze up when we go around and start talking about ourselves, is that as to why I'm here. I am half Filipino and half Irish. I'm also a trans queer person in this world, and I never see myself reflected back to me. I'm often on the margins, and whether that's with people of color, with white people, straight people, queer people even, and so it is important to me that we do provide voices for folks as somebody who has often felt voiceless. So I just wanted to put that out there because I consider myself a future ancestor, and I carry my ancestry with me, and it makes me feel as though I'm connected to people literally. And so just wanted to put that out there. So that's completely cut off. That's awesome.
I think if I go back, if I just don't.
This is my plug for
put it in
never using Google Slides ever.
69, keep it in 69.
I know, it's terrible. It's okay, it's fine. You know what? It wouldn't be a presentation without technical
You can
difficulties.
actually just change the format to 69.
Can we pull the thing out a little bit more?
We can
Like
see this
the-
one too.
Yeah.
Can you show me?
Size. Can you, I don't know what you mean, actually. It might help us moving forward. I'll talk about. Is that what it is? I think it's actually.
There you go.
Bam. So now we get the IC on the end of the strategic. Thank you. So strategic doing is what I'm going to be talking about today. And I'll be honest, when I first heard about strategic doing, I'm a planner by trade. Strategic planning, I've avoided most of my professional life as much as possible. But strategic doing was just like this sexy word I felt like it was getting thrown around. And so I avoided that as well. It's like you're always sort of questioning what's cool. But I sat through a presentation and thought, strategic planning, which I say I avoided, but I actually was forced to do a few of those. There is a difference between strategic planning and strategic doing that I'm going to go over, and that's okay if that's not going to pull up. It's not. Okay.
We can see it this way, though.
You can pretty much see it. So what strategic doing really is about a process where we're looking at where we want to go, and we're getting a group of people together that we all arrive with our own, what is termed here assets, and I apologize for that terminology, but assets as in, the things that I can access without asking for permission, basically. So we gather people together who have those things, and everybody has kind of an equal playing field. The hierarchies are sort of dissolved, and you're looking at what can we strategically do to get to a thing. And you can go to the second slide. Real quick. So it is about the assets. We have equal voice and equal responsibility, and I'm going to really stress this, to take action. This is not strategic putting on a shelf. This is strategic doing. So if we go to the third slide, I guess, strategic doing versus strategic planning. Strategic planning can be slow and linear, and we have ideas, programs and events that we want to do. And sometimes those things just don't come into fruition. And it's because we don't have it's like, well, Joe said he was going to do it. Well, Joe's like, I wasn't at the meeting. Yeah. So, that's some of the differences really is how things are set up. Intentionality matters. And it's also, what I appreciate about it is that it's really about relationship and trust. It's about relationship building and trust. So when we walk through the process, it's about the people in the room. So the people in the room really matter moving forward. And then you are going to agree to do some things, and then we're going to check on you. And it's that checking that really starts to build that trust. I mean, who here has ever been a part of a group and there's like half the people that don't actually do the work? Yeah. So or, you know, one or two people, whatever, you know. So there's some people that just don't do it for whatever reason, you know, maybe they got other stuff going on in their lives, whatever. But this actually kind of builds in accountability, because and typically it's every 30 days you kind of check in on the projects that you're working on. But with the way that you all are set up, you could literally check in every 2 weeks. And then you kind of know, hey, you know, Sarah's not pulling her weight here. And so we can either decide to let Sarah go, or we can decide, it's agile. It's like, or this project's just not working, so let's do one of the other things that we said we were going to do. You know, so instead of having this like, oh, well, we said we would do this thing and we're going to get it done, it's a recognizing that like things change. Some things come to fruition and you have to pivot. So we can kind of go on down. So to kind of get to how it's put together, there's some steps in it, and it's about, you know, the first part of it is really some questions. You know, what could we do? What should we do? What will we do? And a lot of that is sort of big picture thinking. We need to come up with an aspirational statement or quote. Let's say we want to, you know, eradicate racism in Iowa City. Very aspirational. But then we're going to go through this process. How do we get there? So there's a series of things that happen. We have a conversation. We start kind of putting people in groups around different tables. And then people start what they call uncovering hidden assets. So, you know, I like to do woodworking, or so-and-so has a trust fund, or, you know, Jim owns a van that he never uses. Like, so you're starting to understand what are the social and physical, financial, all of the types of assets that the people at the table contain that they don't have to ask permission to use. And that is key. You have to be able to just be willing to offer what you have and not have to ask permission for it. And then you sort of what they call link and leverage. So then you start putting those assets together and saying like, well, if we had the van and, you know, we wanted to sell wooden products, I guess, like, you know, like, well, this could come together and then we could do a marketing plan. Like, so that's why it's so key to get people in the room that really are wanting to do the thing and, you know, potentially have assets that you may even know about, because once they're at the table, then you start crafting what we call pilot projects, basically. And then we start putting all these ideas together, all of these, you know, woodworking van ideas, whatever it is that is getting us to this goal. And that's always the North Star, is how does this relate to where we're trying to go? Well, the van will, you know, allow people to access woodworking skills, and that will give us more trade people. You know, so you kind of have to go there. How does this connect? And you start to rank them into what we call the big easy. And it's essentially, and I'll show you the chart, it's what can we do that is, you know, basically quickly, easily, and then maybe what is going to take a little bit longer or is harder to get to. And maybe there's something in the middle, or, you know, kind of the way that we rate them. It'll make more sense when you see the chart. Then we can identify, like, okay, we can do this quickly and easily, or, you know, this is going to cost more money or whatever. And then we turn that into those pilot projects, those Pathfinder projects. So I was just going to give you an example. So we did this last year around June with the Inclusive Economic Development Plan, myself and Angie Jordan, who I should say actually is also going to be working on the Strategic Doing project with you all. We, along with many others, put together this Inclusive Economic Development Plan, and we decided to ground it in a lot of strategic doing. So we held a strategic doing session. We invited many facets of our community, and it was around inclusive economic development. So the aspirational quote that we came up with, now you have to remember, you know, as people of color and, you know, people who are trying to get their businesses off the ground, people were like, wait a second, like, we get to dream what we want? Well, we're going to be real specific. So this is a little bit longer than most aspirational statements, but they were like, we're at the table, like, we're gonna take it. So I will read it. Imagine a robust entrepreneurial community in Johnson County that authentically welcomes and empowers underestimated business owners with a sense of belonging throughout all stages of business and idea development. They were like, we want the whole thing. We want it all. And we want authenticity in there. We want all stages of business. Like, so it was very specific. And as you can see, we also translated it in Spanish. We held, the session that we did was bilingual, so we did also do it in Spanish. I know there was some question around how do we engage more parts of our community, so I'll get to that in a second. On the next slide, I just want to show, actually, Redmond was there. Redmond attended. We had, bankers, and we had business owners. We had people who owned food trucks. We had city council members. Like, we wanted everybody at the table, and there was food. I just want to point that out. A lot of food. You can see the asset mapping. So we have physical assets, skill assets, social assets, and capital assets. So everybody kind of puts that on there. And then we start looking at how do we link and leverage these? How do we put these together to get to that aspirational statement? So if you drop down to the next slide, this is the big easy. So you start putting your ideas, these nuggets, on this scale, and you say, what's going to have high impact that's easy to do? Or what's going to be kind of difficult but maybe have high impact? So you start to rate these. Well, I think, the van woodworking idea is probably going to have low impact, but it's easy to do, because we have the van and I like to work on wood, I guess. So that's how we start identifying these. And each table does it for their ideas. And we get to score it. I mean, it's, sort of, well, it is what it is. So then we do our math, and then we come up with our Pathfinder projects. And I'll say that this is actually, right after this step is the hardest step, because you're going to have 12 ideas. You're only going to do all of them, okay? So we really have to be very intentional with everybody in the room and what you are willing to, to do to get it done. But I will say at the end of it, you probably want 3 or 4, depending on the group size. You may be able to pull off a few more. But the nice thing about it is that whatever you do, you will always have those ideas. So it's very agile. If you go down a path and you're like, the van broke and nobody cares about woodworking, then we go back and we say, well, this other idea, we give it a couple weeks. If it doesn't work, we'll go try something else. It's also this idea that really pushes back on this notion of failure. Like, it's actually okay to fail, and it's probably just natural to fail, right? But then you can learn from that, and you're learning with your group. That's why it's so important to have these groups where you're sharing and you're checking in and you're basically holding each other accountable to see where it goes. So on the next slide, I just wanted to show you the Pathfinder projects that came out of this, and every single one of these. In fact, the one that I was a part of, this middle one, we met again today. So this was of June last year. So the first one was underestimated business mentorship. So they created, the group actually created a mentorship program that also does microlending. And that's actually been going on in the community. The mobile food vendor portal, we're still working on it a year later, but we're hoping that it will help reduce barriers for people that want to start, having food trucks, to have it in different languages, but also in one place. So because there's city ordinances are all different, and so you want to make sure that people aren't just like stumbling over that. So we're still meeting about that, and we've actually made some headway, if you can imagine, because it's like every city and Johnson County. So and then the Johnson County Business Education Workshop pilot, highly successful. This pilot project, I think they actually did 2 or 3 rounds, and they invited business banks in, and it was all entrepreneurs of color. And they asked really hard questions like, why won't you give me a loan? And these bankers basically had to be like, what? And then they did also financial literacy, and some of the I think some of the banks they started offering some programs. Like, you're right, like we don't. We need to do some financial literacy. So those have actually started building relationships in our community. Those were 3 projects that came out of that really had impacts in our community. So those were some examples. The last slide, because I said I would keep it pretty quick here, and then answer some questions. This is our proposal for the TRC. So Angie and I met and talked about this. We think a 2-day session would work well. Basically a 4-hour session, and we have a date if it's possible to do September 7th. What we would do is intentionally invite about 40 people or so. And when I say intentionally invite, I really mean like we need to start putting lists together that's about people who will be willing to do the work. Start intentionally doing that outreach to people we know, people we don't know, and we can certainly help with some of that, put that together, and some of the marketing materials around that. And we'll have catered dinner, that's listed. We identified that we could do it at City Hall, we could do it here, we can figure that out. But then to follow up, normally we do 2 4-hour sessions, but that's a lot. So we decided if we did this 4-hour session, we could do a 2-hour session that Saturday, and have that be, instead of the whole thing, have that be the Pathfinder projects, and then people who may want to get involved with the Pathfinder projects can then get involved. The other thing I'll say is that I am trained in strategic doing, Angie Jordan is trained in strategic doing, and Marlene Mendoza is trained in strategic doing. We are the only 3 people of color that we know of in our community that are strategic doing practitioners. We had to go through training, If you are interested, we think it would be worthwhile to actually conduct a session entirely in Spanish, and Marlene could do that. She has her own consulting firm, and since it's such a specific thing, it could at least be one thing. Now, I will say, if it's conducted entirely in Spanish and they're doing it within their own community, the TRC is going to have to be comfortable with like what they end up doing, right? So, I'm just letting you know that like it's kind of contained, into what they come up with, what their pathfinders are. So that's our proposal. Food is included in the Saturday as well. And it's also, we thought it might be good to have it in the South District, just to change up location. But I'm happy to answer questions. It's listed as a primer. So that's your primer. I can answer any questions now or later.
Questions for V or Larry?
I'm just really quick, just curious how you envision the strategic doing process. Like, we have specific charges. Are we going to focus on truth telling and asking people to come around that project? Because it's probably not fact finding, or what are you thinking?
It could be anything. It could be marketing. That could be a Pathfinder project. It could be working with school district. It could be, some of these areas that you want to explore. You're basically creating, I'm going to choke on this word, a subcommittee, but you know what I mean? you're creating a group. We like to call them Pathfinder project groups, but so some of these projects, and that's why I say also it really is about who is in the room and who has the assets. It's relinquishing a little bit of control from the TRC's perspective. You are obviously involved in it, and you will be a part of those groups. So if you choose to be so, but it is organically coming from the people in the room.
Okay.
Yeah. Now it is being led by that aspirational statement, so it has to link to that. And if somebody comes up with a project and everybody hates it, I don't think, you know what I mean? If they're like, no, and that's also why it's helpful to have, is it high impact, high effort? Or is it low impact? Once you start seeing that, you're like, I don't really want to waste my time, and people are, going to have to be forthcoming with how they rate things, so.
Is that going to be enough time? The 4 hours one day and 2 hours that Saturday?
Yeah, I think so. We can, it's agile. So if we feel like we need more time, we can try and do that. But I think with the 4 and the 2, it should be pretty good. I think it's probably more about the putting it together and inviting. That will be a really big lift because we want the community to be involved, and we also need people that will show up and do the work. So if they engage in it, like they're kind of in it, hopefully, Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I don't really have a question. I just wanted to make a comment, and maybe this is not even the right time to do it, but I was thinking maybe we could like come up with some sort of questionnaire, start talking to the community about what they feel are the concerns in the community and how they would feel comfortable with their truth telling, and start getting feedback, like widespread, so we know, have just some feedback on, because in my head I'm like, oh, we should do this and we should do that, but this is for the community.
Yeah, I think it's always good to get input and information to inform decisions and the path that you want to take. I think that there's also a real genuine opportunity for the work plan to identify, because surveys just take resources. It's going to, however you get it out there. But so I just say, put it in, do it. Yeah, I think it would be great to get. And then that also helps get you out there, the name and all that too. I tried to keep it under 15.
Thank you. Any other questions from commissioners? Okay. Did you have something you wanted to close with, or?
Well, our Native partners, Terry, is going to close us out as they promised, with a blessing, cleansing, healing. It's been a lot in 3 days.
Don't look at that clock now.
Just wanting to acknowledge that it's been a lot, and it's just the start. There are probably more questions and open spaces for openness and dialogue than, like we resolved something, or, like we've come to these 3 days to say, okay, I'm clear about this. It's probably more questions than anything that have emerged. And that's where we are. We just are where we are. But I believe, I don't know about others, that great work and great ground has been tilled in these 3 days, and helping for the TRC to move forward in the ways that you all desire it to move forward. So again, our last part was, again, to allow our Native partners, our Indigenous partners to close us out.
Comments, and we can. They're on.
And just to add to that, we talked often.
We can't hear you.
We've talked often in these 3 days about how difficult this work. We've talked we have talked often about how difficult this work is, and that it's a struggle, and all that is super true. But there's also a lot of joy and a lot of deep pleasure to be gained by going through these firewalks together. So I just want to close on our end with the joyfulness and the appreciation. So thank you for that.
On our end also, I was trying to add something, a very short thing. I'm pretty sure everybody has noticed that I'm like significantly younger.
Actually, I hadn't noticed.
Okay. Yes, it's been so good being here and just like learning from everybody. I think when I walk into a room, I walk in with a very strong presence. I think that is probably one of my strongest characteristics. And it's been so amazing having other strong-minded, strong presence, having individuals in the room. My friends and I are big watchers of the Women's World Cup for soccer, and most of them have taken time out of their women's soccer watching schedule to actually tune in and have a watch party in the work that we're doing. And to me, that is so significant, because I know that there is a push in the community where people are like, it feels like there's a removal between the youth and like the work that you guys are doing here. But We are here to listen, and if you guys are willing and to have us, we're going to be there. And it's not just the youth, like it's the entire community. Today when we went to cater the food and they asked like what this was for, and I sat there and obviously I ramble a lot if you can't tell, and I just went on this rant. And, you know, he said, you know what, we want everybody fed, and they basically cut the price in half, took off all the taxes, and it's the community coming together because we take care of our own, and we're going to continue to take care of our own if everybody is putting the work. And I know that there's been some resistance on some ends, but the rest of the community is behind you and the work that you're doing, and everybody sees it, even if it seems like it's so small. And in the spirit of Hunger Games, because I am a Hunger Games fan, fire is catching.
Okay, guys. I'm gonna start off. I do a little writing myself. I'm not a writer, but I do write. So I put together a video some years ago, and I want to share it here because I think it's appropriate what we've all experienced, and just kind of I put this together. And my brother that's passed on now, he's playing the flute music in this video here. So if you can turn the lights off and turn the sound up and make it full screen, we'll go from there. Oh.
Welcome to the Discover the Unexpected experience.
Come along with me as I show you the day in the life of a Chevy DTU intern.
Here, we're going on a road.
Make the screen big. Here we go. Every day, you can read it in the newspaper. See it played over and over again on CNN and local news stations from coast to coast and worldwide. Killings, senseless shootings, murders, wars, family domestic violence, tragic and heartbreaking stories of bullying, the suicides, the horrors and effects of alcohol and drugs, tearing apart and destroying families. The reality TV shows that tell it like it is, with no scripts to follow, but real life feelings and emotions that break the spirit of the people in the stories. We all have people in our lives who are so special to us that we call them brother, sister, dad, mom, grandpa, or grandma. In the movies, we hear it said, he or she was just like my brother or sister. If we sincerely believe that, then we need to show it, live it, and be more loving and respectful to everyone, no matter what color, race, or creed. Our loved ones being struck with the cancers, the heart attacks, the strokes, the diabetes that breaks our hearts and takes our loved ones from us and leaves us with a feeling of hopelessness. We can only walk in one body and take care of one mind. We are the soul keepers of our own soul. So therefore, before we can pass on teachings, we first need to fulfill our own hearts and minds with the righteousness of the Spirit. No one walks in our shoes but us. We will all take our turns when we are called home by the Creator. We have one body, one mind, and one life. No one can pass through life without death. There is one Creator, which makes us all brothers and sisters. This Flame of Hope candle was created to give a sacred symbol and hope to all, no matter what color, that from this day on, we can look in the mirror and make a change in our lives. There would be no brotherhood or sisterhood without our fathers and mothers. In the words of Albert Al Pooley, fatherhood and motherhood is sacred. This is my wishes and prayers for all my brothers and sisters worldwide. I want this flame to spread around the world in 2015. Stand up and be the light in the lives of our youth. The colors represent my white, black, yellow, red, and brown brothers and sisters, and the color pink represents all the cancers and diseases of the world that we pray for a cure one day. Aho Matakuo-san, we are all related. 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 that video's on, it goes longer. I'm on there talking. And so I put that together some years back.
Okay, our relatives,
As you can
my
cut
name is Terry Medina. I'm from
that's one of my native shirts. Got to go native.
Winnebago,
You can
Nebraska
cut
for
off.
the past 30 years.
Okay.
Probation officer for 25 years plus. Still serve on the Board of Education at Winnebago Public School.
My eating clothes. Roll with 15, well, I gotta be ready. So I'm gonna start talking here.
To Father Take a Program.
But when I do that here, I'm gonna start right here, there here. So I got the sage, and then I'm gonna pass around. I want you guys to maybe hold it, shut your eyes, reflect it. What you want to put in here? We all have dramas, worries in our lives, our children. Something's always happening. Here today was a teachable moment these last 3 days. So whatever you put in it, then it's going to come back to me, and I brought my feather, and then I'm going to light it, and then I'm going to say a prayer. And so everything that you put in here is going to go up to Constantine, Wakanda, Pusha, Jesus Christ, your higher power, however you believe, it's going to go up to it. So we use this medicine here, and we can eat it and make a tea out of it and cleanse ourselves. And so tonight here was a wonderful night, these last few nights. You know, tears came out tonight, the other night. Those tears come out because your spirit's touched, and it comes out. So I'm going to give this to Larry. So I want you just to meditate and whatever you want to put in, your hopes and desires and dreams for yourself and for this commission, for the Iowa City Council here, for all your relatives here. So here I put down, I got to start putting down stuff, otherwise I'll be here till 11. I'm not going to do that. So here's my closing statements here. If we had time, I'd give everyone the mic. Ask you, what is the purpose of life? Think about it. What is the purpose of life? So I give it to people, they're going to say what the purpose of life is. In our fatherhood, motherhood way of life, we say the purpose of life is to have a happy family. We added safe family, period. So when we talk about leadership, fatherhood and mothers were the first teachers to our children. So it goes back to the purpose of life is to have a happy family. Now, it sounds good, it can be good, but when you got a lot of children that I have, grandchildren, they try to play me. Dad, you get upset. Remember that, Father sacred. That's right, Father sacred. Move that ass, get those dishes done. So that's the purpose of life, is have a happy family. Then look at. Here it is. The big C word for me is choices. All of us, we made a choice to be here. We made a choice to be here. Every day we make choices, right? Choices is a big word. Teachable. Every day is a teachable moment. Tonight, teachable moment in time here. We all have differences of opinion. And that video there, like I said, we say it, we're all related no matter where we come from. Choices, teachable, service, serving the people. Christine's been serving me, waiting on me, taking care of me. It's the way it's supposed to be. She knows. She's native. She knows.
He's the elder.
So this is a native thing. Y'all learn down there. So service, you know, like I said, if you come to my house, my daughters are waiting on you. They're serving you. Well, then it's about wisdom.
And the brothers. It's not just. No, he's dead.
So when we talk about wisdom, from the oldest to the youngest, we all have experiences, right? Good or bad. When I teach at Rosecrans, there's about 70-some people, and they're in inpatient facilities. So I said, how many people been in jail? Almost all hands go up. How many people been in prison? Hands go up. It's in the past, so we can't change the past. So wisdom, you go through life, you have experiences, hopefully you gain a little knowledge. The knowledge plus the experience, when you find that understanding, that equals wisdom. So you don't have to be an OG like me, old grandpa like me to be wise. This young lady here speaks wisdom, like it for it, love it for it. So then we talk about the Creator. When we talk about the Creator, we don't talk about religion. We talk about your spirituality. And that's what's been taking place in what I've been witnessing here. Spirituality, wisdom, creator, bravery. It takes a courageous person, a brave person, stand up and express themselves. Because people that keep anger, bitterness inside, they're going to keep it there unless they let it out. So bravery is important. Spirituality, that's what I preach, spirituality. We all have a spirit, and we all have a heart, and we all have a soul. When your heart gets broken, what happens? You cry. Either tears of sadness, happiness, anger. And we read it. Someone gets mad, goes to work, kills everybody. Kills themselves, kills their family. So that bravery, being courageous, it takes a lot of integrity, willpower. That's what I've seen here. Honor. Every one of your names is meant to be a good name. When your mother held you, the umbilical cord was still attached. They want good things for you, wanted good things for you. And so going back to your dear old mother, your father, they want good things for you. So your names are all meant to be honorable. Then we talk about respect. I say it every day, respect, have self-respect, have respect for everyone. We can all agree to disagree. Then we say it like this. Here's a father and here's a mother. Is everyone here? Who don't have children here yet? You guys? That's right. Time's coming. So you have a father and mother, so you come together as one, the co-creators of your children with Creator God. So we say it like this: if you're a father or mother, we tell the fathers and mothers in our Father way of life, be a blessing to them. Bless them with spirituality, with prayer, with your time, loving acts of kindness. If you're not a blessing to them, you're a burden. Me, myself, and I had a hard week and I go out for a happy hour. In our Indian country, happy hour might turn into a week. Shoot, I've seen it. I've seen it. And so, be a blessing every day to everyone. To me, this is the brotherhood and sisterhood of the family we put together here. So you're either a burden or a blessing. I tell people, bless me. Be a blessing to me. If not a blessing, you're a burden. That's selfishness, me and myself and I. Self-pity. Then I talk about, can there be love without trust? Can there be love without trust? Can you love your husband if you don't trust him? Can you love your companion if you don't trust him? There's no right or wrong answer, but that domestic violence, right? We say it on the res, man. See that Indian love. Car windows all busted out, right? Black eye, and they're back together, all heated up again. They go back. So can there be love without trust? That's a question for you guys. Then over here, we talk about, have you ever prejudged somebody? Have you? Well, we're all guilty of it. I used to be on the school board for 25 years. I went to sign checks one summer. That's now skinny, cut, had overalls on, no shirt on, headband on. New teacher came in. Thought I was the janitor. I was helping her take the trash out about half an hour. Mr. Medina, where you been? I had to go up there to sign checks as school board president. I just met Mr. Medina, our school board president. She about had a heart attack. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Medina, I'm sorry. But she assumed I was a janitor. Went down to the FBI office one time with 3 daughters. I couldn't find a hair tie or a razor. So when I went down there to meet with the FBI people, here comes this lady. She like this, sizing me up and look at him. She couldn't help herself. Fine, I said, excuse me, sir. Who are you here to see? What penitentiary did you just get out of? Jeez, have you come out of prison? Then here comes Brett. Mary, you met Mr. Medina, probation officer from Winnebago. Oh my God, it's too late. I felt it. It was a teachable moment. And so it's a teachable moment every day on how we interact with people. But for me, the big word, communication. And we got to communicate. We have to communicate. Down here then, let me see here. Okay. Feelings and emotions, they're very powerful. We all have feelings of hatred, bitterness, jealousy, envy, revenge, or we have feelings of love, compassion, understanding, and forgiveness. Either way, we make a choice to either forgive and forget or to hold that anger. It's like that virus. It stays in you. And so this is going on here. When it comes around, that's what I try to do. Everything should leave you. All the negative energy should leave you. It should be replaced with all that. Okay, then right down here, we talk about in the family. To me, this is the family. This is the family. So in any family, there's conflict, there's disagreement. Then here's a question for you guys just to ponder, just to think about. I use this with my youth. Now I use it with adults. When you look in the mirror, and everyone here, when you guys look in the mirror, what do you see? Think about that. What do you see when you look in that mirror? But the important thing is, when other people see you, what do they see? How do you carry yourself? That's an important question for the children. They have a different way of seeing things because they're still going through their feelings and emotions. So when you look in the mirror, what do you see? And when others look at you, what do they see? So to me, I say it like this: every day be respectful, every day keep a good attitude, every day be kind. But what happens every day? You run into people, no respect, shitty, piss poor attitude, and they're not kind, they're mean, and they make a choice to be like that. And excuse me, these are social workers, probation officers, police officers, people supposed to serve the people. Man, they get attitude. So we go down here. So all this here, I reflected back here these last 2 days, just sitting here and listening, keeping quiet. So keep a positive attitude, be kind. Okay, down here. Stay focused, have a mission, have a vision. I love that mission statement. That was good. So have a mission. And so in my class, the people have to write out their mission statement. What is your mission? Well, when I'm at Rosecrans, the mission is to be alcohol and drug free, make a new change in life. But then they have to write me a vision statement. What is your vision for you? Down the road, 1 year, 6 months. Have a vision, because people, I swear to God, they stay on a dead-end street, and they stay there. They're not going to get off that dead-end street until they let it go, move on. Look at, everyone that traveled here, we had to prepare to travel, right? Flew in, we prepared for that to be gone. To me, my attitude is we have to prepare right now for when we take our last breath. When pray to God calls us home, the day, the hour, the minute, the second, when our spirit leaves our body, we got to prepare right now. Our children, get them ready. So as fathers and mothers, we're the first teachers to our children. And then, being a probation officer, I brought one of my kids in today. It was a curse. My daughter's no good. When they got away from me, they had to come home. I had to smell their breath. If it smelled funny, my breath lights on right now. A blow test right now. I was overbearing dad, but they all turned out pretty good except me, my daughter. She's a burden to me. But she ain't listening to me. So what's happened here tonight is that we have to stay focused. We have to stay, the 3 Ds, we have to stay dedicated, devoted, and determined to carry on to do what? And serve our people. However we serve our people, we have to be like that every day. Then, let's see here. Pretty fast. See, I can going real fast tonight. And then, so finally down here then, okay, so then, turn that light up a little bit. So then, that's what I said here. So then, that's, when I do the talk sometimes at night, if I had all these lights off, we couldn't see our own hand. And so for me, when I light this light, that flame of hope candle, I created that candle. I didn't create it to market, make money. Like I said, I'm always giving things away, but that should end up selling over 3,000 candles, 25 a pop. $40 when I autographed it. So here, we've all been in the darkness at one time, and then I'm not a Bible reading guy, but one time I had to do a reading in church. There's a letter of St. Paul to the Corinthians, and it says right there, at one time, it says, brothers and sisters, at one time we were all in the darkness. It says, it challenges us to come out of the darkness and come into the light, because everything in the light represents truth, goodness, love, and happiness. So, like when I light this light here,
If you can see it.
to me, every one of us in here, every one of you have your own light. And your light is bright, should be bright in the lives of your children, your family. But sometimes when we go selfish, our light barely a flicker if we're out there on the streets, on meth and drugs, in jail, in prisons. So I challenge my people when I go into the penitentiary, I go down to Jameson, Hammond, in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, a lot of natives in there. So I challenge them, how can you be a good dad or a good mom if you're in prison? So then we say, when we pass on in our beliefs, we're going to be reunited with our spirit relatives that passed on before us. And I showed some spirit pictures tonight. There's probably spirits right here with us. We don't see them. Sometimes we feel them. But when we pass on, like on my mom's side, my dad's side, I never met my grandparents on either side. So when I get over there, they're going to look at me. They're going to welcome me into the family. They're not going to say, Terry, what kind of job did you have? How much money did you have in the bank? What kind of house did you live in? They ain't going to worry about that. They're going to ask about your children. Because your children are their children. It's all about that family. So in that critical moment right there, you tell the fathers and mothers, you're going to be able to hold your head up high and talk about how good of a father you were, how good a mother you were, and you can talk about your children. In that instant, they're going to know he was either an honorable man or he was a selfish man or a woman. Alcohol and drugs is more important. So we take knowledge with us, we take our relationships with us, we're going to take our shame or our honor with us over there. That's how we believe, you know, and we say in our Dakota way, we say, Metakwisa. Metakwisa, they say, Doksha, we say, Doksha Aki. Doksha means we'll see you down the road, either here or when we pass over. And in our native ways, we don't have a word for our stepchildren, foster children. All of the aunties, uncles, their moms and dads. You turn the light on. All of our children, we're the mothers and fathers. So that's how we do it. We come together as family. We come together as one. And so that's how my teachings every day, I empower people. Like Monday, there's a lot of people that come see me. They're going to want prayer. They're going to want saved. So I'm going to just kind of go around here. Oh, just go around?
You did.
Oh, then okay, you got too fast. So I'm going to light this here, second here, so I'm going to offer some prayer. So what you put in there, that's going to go. It's going to go up to Consta. Tobacco, I don't smoke. Now I got some sacred smokes. Man, you can't have those sacred smokes. But we as natives, we put them out. We pray in the four directions. We put them out the west side of the tree. And what we didn't do, you know, we make a spirit plate for a spirit relative. I kind of take care of that stuff. And a lot of times, one of my bros, he's a Navajo medicine man, but he's a psychiatrist. Runs the National Native American Psychiatry Association. So he says if Ms. Medina was to go see a mental health therapist, and so yeah, sometimes we put food up for our spirit relatives. Sometimes we see our spirit relatives. What are you gonna say? Get that DSM 5 or 6, whatever it is, on the diagnostic tool. He's delusional. He's hysterical. He's seeing things. He's crazy because they don't know. They was trained a certain way, but they don't know the cultures. And so that's important to know. And so I kind of go by that. I don't try to shame anybody out, but a lot of the mental health people they're finally paying attention, listening. No, I've never set alarm off yet. So. The police station.
I've never seen an alarm set off when people do
But
something.
even
That's a big.
even just for you. Even down at the FBI office, you know, they suspended the rules and let me smudge off in there. So I'm gonna go by, I'm gonna just smudge you, then you take it, you blush yourself. It's gonna go up and take everything up. So you relatives over there, I'm gonna smudge you from here. So this is it's my fastest talk ever. Yeah.
We'll have to show Monape.
Yeah, monopolies here, we'd be here. We would be here till 11.
I know.
Okay, so bear with me now too. So, just for your information, I always my job the 4 directions that brings us strength and comfort. Surround us with prayer in Mother Earth, then the heaven, then 7, the south. Oh, consecrated God, here to say thank you for this day. These relatives that come together from the 4 directions here, they left families, they left loved ones back, and so pray to God, my prayer is that the road be open for us as we travel home, the skies be open for the relatives that are traveling on here, and we come together as one here to talk about what's going to take place here in Iowa City. The differences doesn't matter, the color of our skin, we all belong to one pray to God here. We all have children that we care for and love, and so whatever titles we have, it's okay. It's important that our titles as father, mother, grandma, grandpa, auntie, uncle, like that, or son and daughter, that's very important for us as natives, pray to God. So these relatives here, they touch the sage, they put something in here. They want something for themselves, maybe for their families, something that is taking place in their lives. So all their wants and dreams and desires, pray to God, my prayers are that you can grant that for them, be there for them in their time here. And then pray to God, we have the homeless, we have our children of all colors, foster homes, group homes. We have the relatives incarcerated on the streets, homeless in prisons. And even right now, pray to God, you know worldwide that the war is taking place, things are happening, and we have to pay attention to those things here, and that we can live our life in a good way, a really good way to set that example, a loving example for our children to follow. And if there's any things that I've overlooked here, pray to God this time, I say I'm sorry for that. But again, my new family over here in Iowa City here with Christine and all my people I've met here, it's a blessing here to be in their presence here. I'm thankful to be here tonight. And what's going to happen from this day on here, we're going to make great things happen over here with our minds, with our education, with our willingness to come over here and do the best we can to make it better for them, to walk hand in hand with them and serve them in good ways so they can in turn serve the people here. So all the leaders here, the Iowa City Council, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission here, my new family here, I say about that much here, and I say thank you for all these things that take place. Oh. To the back there. Thank you. Okay, like I said, if you know me, I can go, because I love what I do. And for me, my last comment here as a probation officer for the last 37 years, what I do now, to me, I never worked a day in my life. People make a choice, they have to come to see me. So when I wake up, say my prayers, who is the creator God who can put in my path today? So I have lose my voice, but I have an attitude of gratitude. I'm grateful. With sometimes our young people, they're not grateful, they're greedy. Grandchildren, choking, grandpa, will you bring me? Are we gonna go shop tomorrow? We're going to eat. So I spoil them, and then I teach them. Same thing. When you come to my home, if they obey my rules, my nephew, sorry, I can't even miss Thanksgiving this year. Disrespect my home. So I'm very strict in what I do, but then again, I'm trying to teach them what? And responsibility. So God bless, thank you. I hope the tacos are all related. I hope.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much to all our facilitators. I'm going to open it up for public comment. Is there anyone online or in the audience that would like to say something at this time? If not, I'm going to move to adjourn, but first, oh, there is someone? Okay. Welcome.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I heard that you were just about ready to adjourn with no one up. So I was just going to say, I'm so stoked to see y'all empowered and ready to set your vision. I am so sorry that you have had to deal with countless robberies of your time that persist up till now with the city's actions. But, you know, the only reason they push so hard is because the ones who aren't scared are the ones who think that they should be scared of you. So, like, it means you're doing the right work. And getting here was a victory. There's a lot of victories to come. I'm really excited for all of you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to give public comment online or in person? Go ahead. Choose either one.
Hello. I just wanted to say that I'm so proud of everyone in this room. All of the progress and all of the pushing that you guys have been done despite everything has been glorious to see. And whenever the TRC is ready to have me and all of my silly ideas, I'm so excited to be able to work with you guys and to keep cheering you on from the side, because I don't know if you've realized, Eduardo and Kearns and West, there's some pretty amazing people. Dave Regland, he's all right. Seriously, it's incredible, and I really am proud of every single one of you that has stuck it through. And I'm excited to keep cheering along and watching you guys continue to kick ass. And just remember that when it comes to the city council, I think the ball is in your court, and I definitely think that you have the opportunity to tell them more what the TRC looks like for you rather than ask them. And that's going to be my bit of advice. I think there's a lot more power that you guys have as an entity now, and I think maybe it would be worthwhile to like put a new member in front of the council to ask or tell them something, you know? I don't know, but either way, you guys are amazing, and I'm really, really proud of all of the work you've done. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else online or in the room that would like to speak? Okay, if not, the only thing I have to say to my fellow commissioners is that since we are not meeting tonight, I would like to propose that we have a second meeting this month, potentially on the 24th. If that does not work for you, let me know afterwards, and we'll follow up via email. If not, we're adjourned. Thank you.